Chapter 26:05. Zhu Ming left the cabin. When he was just a short distance away from the Sea King, the members of the mercenary corps outside began to speed up their movements. Zichen, is it really you? Su Yan, who was in Yi Zichen's arms, slowly looked up. Her expression was one of disbelief. Silly girl. He reached out and stroked her head. If it wasn't me, who else could it be? Why are you asking this? You're already in my arms. If it wasn't me, would you throw yourself into it? That would make you unhappy. As she spoke, hot tears flowed uncontrollably from Su Yan's eyes. Yi Zichen frantically wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes with an apologetic look. Sorry, I'm late. Tears burst out of her eyes. Yi Zichen held Su Yan's delicate body and felt it tremble. His heart was filled with regret. He came back too late. Don't cry, it's all over. When it's over, we'll return to the Milky Way galaxy. Trust me, from now on, no one will be able to invade our Milky Way galaxy. No, I can't go back. Su Yan suddenly shook her head. I signed a contract with the Tulip family. I can't leave. Don't worry. After today, not even an ant will remain in the Tulip family. If the family is exterminated, then what is the point of the contract? Yi Zichen's tone was filled with confidence. Su Yan looked up at him for a long time, biting her lip. These people, I hired them. Yi Zichen explained with a smile. Mercenary groups are pretty much the same as those mercenaries on Earth. As long as you give them enough money, they will do anything. Then you have to remind them that the people from the Milky Way galaxy are also here. Who said that? Yi Zichen frowned. Why didn't I know all of our people were here? Their clan dash. Before Su Yan could finish, she stopped abruptly. I think I've been tricked. As the saying goes, concern leads to confusion. She cared too much about the people of the Milky Way galaxy that she did not doubt the authenticity of the patriarch of the Tulip family. From the beginning to the end, he was the one talking. However, Su Yan didn't see anyone from the Milky Way galaxy, not even proof. Don't worry, I've already sent a lot of messages to the Great Sage and the others. When they find out that the Tulip family has been destroyed, they will definitely return to the Milky Way galaxy to look for us. Yi Zichen comforted her softly. Su Yan bit her lips as well. But my brother, he will also be safe and sound. Don't worry, I'm back. I'll take care of everything. She didn't know why, but when she heard his voice, she subconsciously felt at ease. Perhaps this was the so-called trust. She believed everything Yi Zichen said from the bottom of her heart. She also knew that Yi Zichen was someone she could rely on, no matter what kind of problem it was. As long as he was around, there would definitely be a way to solve it. Su Yan nodded, then followed Yi Zichen out of the cabin. In less than 5 minutes, all the dispatched mercenaries returned. In the entire Life Star, not even 10% of the human clan was left. Those who survived should be those who had been vetted by the mercenary group and had no connection with the Tulip family. Mr. Yi, we can go down now. The cabin door opened, and Zhu Ming stood outside. Yi Zichen nodded, grabbed Su Yan's hand, and slowly walked out of the cabin. Over 100,000 mercenaries. All of them stood in the void. The Sea King stood at the very front. Behind him were 3 conferred kings and more than 10 dukes. Mr. Yi, the main branch of the Tulip family has been completely purged. There are still some dispatched clansmen that are being dealt with. Please wait patiently. During this period, our mercenary group will continue to serve you. If you need, we can help you collect the assets of the deceased and the resources of the Tulip family. Please give me your instructions. You can do that? Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. Don't you need those resources? It's like this, Mr. Yi. The Tulip family is your target. The resources here naturally belong to you. We do not have the right to take any of the resources here. Zhu Ming explained with a smile. I see. Yi Zichen nodded, then sighed. I don't need it. Destroy them all. If you need it, of course, you can take it away. Mr. Yi. Zhu Ming was shocked. Even the kings and dukes were shocked. In truth, it was normal for people to collect resources after a war. This was something they had to do. No one would ignore resources. Furthermore, many people went to mercenary groups to issue missions in order to conquer a certain family or life planet's resources. They didn't need resources. Mr. Yi, are you serious? Zhu Ming frowned. Although we didn't investigate the Tulip family in detail, even if they're a relatively poor family, we definitely wouldn't be able to withdraw all the money we have in the bank. However, it's normal for us to take out a few 100,000 primordial chaos resources for resources, weapons, and war preparations. We're going to wipe out an entire life planet's resources. I estimate it to be over 3 million primordial chaos resources. You're giving up just like that? That much? Yi Zichen was shocked, then nodded. He finally understood why mercenary groups were so expensive and why so many people would seek them out. Resources. Mercenary groups didn't take a single cent. For all they knew, there might be people who wanted to fight and use mercenary groups to accumulate wealth. Even if they weren't like that, if they were purely motivated by revenge, they'd be able to replenish their resources after their entire family was wiped out. I don't need it. Mr. Yi. Zhu Ming frowned. Mr. Yi, you can't joke around like that. We'll really take it seriously. To be honest, we're tempted by these resources. That's right. Even the king-ranked experts nodded in agreement. Go take it yourselves. Yi Zichen let out a deep sigh. There was no hesitation in his eyes. Millions of primordial chaos resources. He was tempted. How could he not be tempted? It was just that he didn't want any of the resources here. Perhaps it was because he was conflicted, or because he found the resources here disgusting. This was a very irrational decision. Then we'll really take it ourselves, Zhu Ming said tentatively. Yi Zichen nodded with a smile. Go on. If possible, I'd like to ask you to give some to those who are still alive as compensation. Then, you can help me destroy this life planet. Is that okay? Chapter 26:06. Destroy a life planet. Zhu Ming hesitated. He subconsciously glanced at the Sea King. If he wanted to destroy an entire life planet, he couldn't make the decision. Furthermore, he wasn't strong enough to do such a thing. Zichen. Su Yin hadn't expected Yi Zichen to do such a thing. Her eyes were filled with shock and confusion. Yi Zichen patted her hand, then looked at Zhu Ming and the Sea King. Can I? Destroying a life planet is a serious crime among humans. The Sea King narrowed his eyes and looked at the mostly destroyed life planet. But since it's already been done, there's no need to wait for the final step. The Sea King smiled as soon as he finished speaking. I'll take this private job. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. The mercenaries gathered resources on the life planet, while the members of the other clans were sent away. 4 days after the Tulip family's destruction, the contract Su Yin signed disappeared, signifying that the Tulip family had officially disappeared from the annals of human history. In outer space, a dozen or so interstellar battleships stopped in outer space. The Sea King stood in the air, facing the Tulip family's life planet. He raised his hand. The space around him trembled violently. Yi Zichen stood in his cabin and watched as countless cracks appeared on the life planet's surface. Then it began to swell, then release a blinding white light. The entire life planet turned into a black hole. Is this how black holes come about? Su Yin exclaimed as she gazed at the black hole. They'd heard of black holes before, and the internet had recorded how they formed, but now that they'd seen it with their own eyes, their hearts were filled with astonishment. Little did they know, Yi Zichen didn't care about that. What he truly cared about was the destruction of a life planet. A king ranked. He had the power to turn a life planet into a black hole. Based on his performance, it didn't seem like he'd used up much cosmic energy. All he'd done was raise his hand, and he destroyed a life planet. This was the power of a 9th stage king ranked. When a warrior's competence reached a certain level, even the life star they depended on to survive was just a toy in their hands. No wonder the human race's laws were so strict. If they hadn't issued such a constitution, no one would have known what would have happened to the human race. All of them had the power to destroy stars. With just one word of disagreement, he would crush your life star. If you let him do that, it would be terrible. But on second thought, although the constitution of the human race was harsh, it restricted those who were not powerful enough. To those powerful humans, the constitution didn't seem to have much of a deterrent effect. For example, the Sea King. Although he said that destroying a life planet was a serious crime, he did not hesitate to accept this private task. Without any consideration, it meant that he didn't care about such a serious crime at all. In other words, they did not take the higher-ups of the human race seriously. Mr. Yi, your mission is over. Zhu Ming looked at the black hole outside without any change in expression as he carried out his work. Are you preparing to return to the space station with us? Or are you leaving now? Return to the space station. If he didn't return to the space station, how was he going to return to the Milky Way? The spacecraft was still in the space station. He couldn't just donate the spacecraft for free, right? Although he did not take a few million primordial chaos, compared to a few million primordial chaos, the spacecraft still belonged to him. He would haggle over every cent. He wouldn't take anything that didn't belong to him. The spacecraft had been provided by the Virtual World Corporation. He better take it back. It might even be Her Holiness's proof. All right, then let's go. Zhu Ming's eyes brimmed with joy. Practically everyone from the Mercenary Corps had profited handsomely. You earned quite a bit, didn't you? Yi Zichen raised his brows and grinned at Zhu Ming as they entered the dark universe. I have to thank you for your generosity, Mr. Yi. How much? About 20,000 primordial chaos. Zhu Ming shrugged. I'm actually one of the less troublesome ones. The Sea King is the one who earned the most. He took away the entire life planet's Earth Core and Life Core. Just those two items alone can be sold for 100,000 primordial chaos. The stronger you are, the more you naturally get, said Yi Zichen. You're right, said Zhu Ming with a smile. But we're pretty lucky this time. No one from the human race's law enforcement department has shown up yet. It seems the situation within the human race is really tense. That's right. Yi Zichen and Zhu Ming had different thoughts. Yi Zichen felt like the human race's law enforcement department hadn't shown up due to the tense situation within the human race. Given the current situation, I feel like it won't be long before we truly enter an era of war. An era of war. Heroes rose up together. This was definitely a time that could change a person's life. True heroes and ambitious people would appear. Yi Zichen didn't have much ambition. All he wanted to do was to protect the people. As for the future, well, he'd have to take it one step at a time. It's fine if a war really breaks out, Zhu Ming shrugged with a smile. The human race is already rotten to the core. Ever since the master of the Milky Way disappeared, the human race's internal strife is inevitable. Why do you all say that? You should be very young, right? Zhu Ming glanced at Yi Zichen. You've been born for less than 1,000 years? Yes, 1,000-year general. Mr. Ye's talent is truly enviable. Zhu Ming's tone was filled with envy. If you were born tens of thousands of years earlier, then you would know just what sort of position the master of the Milky Way holds in the human race. He is the absolute core of the human race, and a point of balance for countless races and factions. With his disappearance, the balance will no longer exist. Thus, strife is inevitable. Is that so? Ever since Yi Zichen arrived in the human universe, he'd heard people mention the master of the Milky Way countless times. He naturally knew that the master of the Milky Way was strong, but hearing them talk about him like that, he really wanted to see just what was so special about the master of the Milky Way to leave such a deep impression on them. Unfortunately, time passed. Even with the time fairy, he couldn't truly go back to the master of the Milky Way's era. The image of the space station gradually appeared from within the cabin. Before long, the warship landed on top of the space station. Zhu Ming bowed deeply towards Yi Zichen. Mr. Yi, your mission ends here. My duty as a guard ends here as well. Thank you for choosing us, the heaven-stealing mercenary group. I look forward to your next. Zhu Ming suddenly paused, then raised his eyebrows at Yi Zichen. It seems like I'll have to continue my mission a bit longer. What is it? Our leader wants to see you. Chapter 2607. Leader. Yi Zichen was stunned. He looked at Zhu Ming. Your leader wants to see me? Yes. Zhu Ming nodded. Of course, if Mr. Yi doesn't want to go, we won't force you. I just heard the leader say that he has something he wants to hand over to you. What does he want to hand over to me? Yi Zichen's mind was filled with question marks. The leader of the heaven-stealing mercenary group was probably on the same level as the leaders of the 8 major powers. Even if Yi Zichen relied on his relationship with the master of the Milky Way, he still hadn't come into contact with any of the leaders. He hadn't even met the leader of the Virtual World Corporation. All right, I'll go. Zichin hesitated for a moment, then nodded. It just so happened that he wanted to get in touch with the leader and mention the idea of forming an alliance. Of course, that day was much earlier than he'd expected. The warship slowly set off. This time, Zichin's warship headed towards the absolute core of the mercenary group. After 10-odd minutes, the warship finally landed. The moment Zichin left the cabin, he saw a very simple hut. That's right, simple. The hut looked a bit like the grass huts the experts on Earth used to live in. Ever since Zichin entered the universe, he'd never seen anything like it. Mr. Yi, our leader's residence is right in front of us. We can't enter without the leader's orders. I'll wait for you here. Zichin nodded towards Zhu Ming, then walked towards the hut and stopped outside the grass fence. Junior, Zichin greets Senior. With that, the door to the hut opened, as if it had been blown open by the wind. Zichin turned around and smiled at Su Yin, then walked in. Sir, what exactly does your leader want with Zichin? Su Yin asked worriedly. I don't know. Then, will anything happen to Zichin? Definitely not, Zhu Ming smiled. I don't know who can harm our leader's guest in front of him. Don't worry. Our leader, meeting Mr. Yi, is definitely a good thing for him. Inside the thatched hut, before entering, Zichin wondered if this thatched hut contained a whole new world. No matter what, it was hard to believe that someone who could sit on the same level as the 8 leaders, or even a level higher than them, was living in this kind of small grass hut. Unfortunately, this leader was simply unimaginable. There was nothing special about the inside of the thatched hut, and the decorations inside were as plain as the outside. Senior, Zichin said from the doorway, your old friend is in the bedroom, and the survival base on the table is your people. Take them with you, and you can leave. An illusory voice came from the room. Zichin raised his eyebrows. There were indeed 3 survival bases on the table. There were 2 beds in the thatched hut's bedroom. Su Yun lay on one of them, while the East Royal Emperor lay on the other. He quickly walked up to her. Both Su Yun and the East Royal Emperor were breathing steadily. Senior, you can leave now. Zichin pursed his lips, unable to understand what the leader of the mercenary group meant. He had specifically asked someone to bring him here. He didn't say anything. He left it to his 2 friends and the survival base for his clansmen. Junior thanked Senior for your great kindness. Although Zichin didn't know the mercenary leader's intentions, he still bowed towards the east. No matter what, he'd save the people of the Milky Way galaxy, Su Yun and the East Royal Emperor, using the energy of the universe to hold the 2 of them back. Zichin grabbed the survival base and slowly walked to the entrance. Senior, what are you trying to say? Does Senior need allies? The moment Zichin finished, Bailey, who was on his shoulder, was completely shocked. He didn't think that Zichin would actually dare to say it. Huh? Inexplicably, laughter came from the room. You're really arrogant. Do you think you're qualified to be my ally? Zichin subconsciously gulped. When you're qualified to see me, we can discuss this again. Before Zichin could say anything, a breeze pushed him out of the thatched hut. Zichin stared blankly at the thatched hut. No wonder there was no one in the room. Right now, he didn't even have the right to meet the leader. But from the meaning of the leader's words, he didn't explicitly refuse. You've got guts. Bailey stood on Zichin's shoulder and said softly, you actually dare to ask. He didn't refuse, did he? Zichin looked up at Bailey. He said that we'll discuss this when I'm qualified to see him. That means that there's room for discussion. Bailey was also stunned. Zichin's words and the leader's voice echoed in his mind. That really does seem to be the case. See, right? I feel like there's still hope. Zichin's eyes were also filled with excitement. Zichin's eyes flashed with excitement. But the problem is, what level do I have to be qualified to meet him? You have to be at least a king level if you want to meet someone of this level, right? A king, huh? Zichin let out a deep sigh. This was truly a daunting realm. I've only just become a champion, and I'm still far from becoming a king. However, this is a pretty good motivation. I have an ally like the heaven-stealing mercenary group. Zichin turned around and looked at the thatched hut behind him, then at the huge space station in front of him. Zichin, Mr. Yi, Su Yin, and Zhu Ming stood outside and waited. Yi Zichen walked over and smiled toward Su Yin. Look, Yun, the East Royal Emperor, and our clansmen are all here. You don't have to worry now. They're all safe. Why are they here? Su Yan's eyes were filled with shock. Yi Zichen shrugged. I don't know either. Anyways, the leader told me to take them away. Mr. Yi, you have to leave. Zhu Meng, who had never rushed Yi Zichen, suddenly spoke up. Just now, our leader sent me a voice transmission to send you away as well. All right. Yi Zichen was completely confused by everything the mysterious leader did. Yi Zichen boarded the cabin and left. Only then did a silver-haired, middle-aged man appear in front of the thatched hut. He smiled as he watched the departing ship. How arrogant! Although that was what he said, for some reason, there was a hint of relief in his eyes. He turned around, then sat on a rattan chair outside the hut and muttered to himself. It seems like I have to add something for Tsang Yue. How about I give that clone to him? Chapter 26:08. At the docking area of the space station, Yi Zichen returned to the docking area 9 with Zhu Ming by his side. Mr. Yi, you can tell me which galaxy you want to go to. When you're close enough, I'll let you know. The headquarters of the Virtual World Corporation. Without the slightest hesitation, Yi Zichen told her where he wanted to go. The Virtual World Corporation. He had to go there. Zhu Ming paused, then nodded in understanding. All right. 2 hours later, Yi Zichen boarded the spaceship and entered outer space. When he saw the empty space behind him, he knew the space station had already jumped away. This also meant that from now on, all contact between him and the heaven-stealing mercenary group was over. Zichen. Su Yin walked up from the second floor of the cabin. Hearing that, Yi Zichen smiled towards her, caressed her face, and gestured downwards. How are you? I'm fine. Su Yin pursed her lips. I should wake up soon. That's good. Hearing this, Yi Zichen let out a sigh of relief. It was good that they were all safe and sound. The planet could be rebuilt if something happened to the people. This wasn't Earth. Even if Yi Zichen risked his life and went to the River of Time, he wouldn't be able to find them. Su Yin leaned against Yi Zichen and held his hand. Outside the cabin was the cold outer space. Su Yin silently looked out at the unfamiliar world. Outside the cabin was the cold outer space. Su Yin silently looked at the unfamiliar world outside. When do you think we can return to our previous lives? When do you think we could go back to our old lives? Trouble came one after another. The demons invaded and forced them to leave Earth. From then on, their wandering life also began. The immortal planet, the divine planet. It was a never-ending campaign. They finally dealt with the demons, but then Yale popped up. After dealing with Yale, they thought they could live an ordinary life. Who would have thought they'd be dragged into the matter of the Milky Way Master? Now, they had to fight to protect the Milky Way. Su Yin didn't like it. Everything she was doing now was forcing herself to accept it all. In her heart, she wanted a stable life, to stay at home and take care of her husband and children. When she was free, she'd go out with Kiki. Clearly, all of this was actually a very common thing, but it was just so difficult for them. We can't go back. Zichen hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. In the past, he would have comforted her and told her that he would be able to go back soon. Trust him. But now, Yi Zichen really couldn't bring himself to say such a thing. When the energy of the universe entered the Milky Way, their world had already changed. Is that so? Su Yin pursed her lips and smiled bitterly. She seemed to have thought of this possibility as well. Sorry. He held Su Yan's hand tightly. Yi Zichen's eyes were filled with apology. What we can do now is to protect ourselves. I can tell you the truth. Our situation is pretty bad. Many forces in the human race universe are very ambiguous. I feel that it won't be long before a war breaks out. The universe we are currently living in will also fuse with the second universe. At that time, not only will there be internal strife within the human race, but there will also be war between the second universe and the first universe. In such a chaotic era, no one has absolute confidence in surviving. It's so complicated. Su Yin frowned. Although she didn't really understand the situation in the universe, She could sense just how turbulent the future of the human race would be from Yi Zichen's words. The real situation is definitely more complicated than I said. Yi Zichen squinted his eyes. What we can do now is to expand our strength as much as possible. We don't want to obtain anything in this chaotic era. It's enough as long as we can protect ourselves. I understand. Su Yan nodded and clenched her fist. Then why are we going to the Virtual World Corporation now? Shouldn't we directly return to the Milky Way galaxy? No. Yi Zichen shook his head without thinking. We definitely can't return to the Milky Way galaxy right now. The news of us destroying the Tulip family clan will definitely spread, and the Sanyue galaxy will definitely know about it. If we go back now, I'm not sure if they'll wait for us in a spatial dark spot. If they use the laws of the human race to arrest us, then everything will be over. So that's how it is. Su Yan nodded. I am Her Holiness of the Virtual World Corporation. I need to head to the Virtual World Corporation to accept or confirm it. When that happens, I'll choose the Milky Way galaxy as my territory. When that happens, the Virtual World Corporation will be able to intimidate those adventurers. If the Sanyue galaxy wants to touch me, they'll have to think twice. Yi Zichen frowned. Of course. That's all before the war starts. Once the war starts, a show of face will be useless. But I'm also trying to buy time. I'll do my best to buy as much time as I can. As they spoke, Yi Zichen's spaceship arrived in front of a massive life planet with a celestial ring around it. Halt! Please show me your identity. A dozen or so count-level experts surrounded them. Yi Zichen stood in the cabin and glanced at the defenses of the Virtual World Corporation's headquarters. From the looks of it, they're completely prepared for war. Yi Zichen took a deep breath, then walked out of the cabin. Please send a message. Yi Zichen has come to accept Her Holiness confirm it. At the Virtual World Corporation's headquarters, the restlessness of the Sanyue galaxy and the ambiguous relationship between the human race's guardian races caused the Virtual World Corporation to be in a constant state of tension. In the back garden of the floating palace, the leader, Wen Li, sat on a flower bed and personally taught Xia the secret arts of the universe. Big sis. The nine-faced overlord hurried in. Wen Li looked up at her, then heard the nine-faced overlord speak up. That little Yi Zichen of the Milky Way, the one we conferred the title of Her Holiness a while ago, he's in trouble. What happened? Wen Li raised her eyebrows. I received news that the Tulip family was wiped out and their life planet turned into a black hole. The nine-faced overlord spoke up. Yi Zichen did it. Anything else? Wen Li didn't seem all that surprised. She merely indicated for Xia to continue. Also, he's here. The nine-faced overlord shrugged. Someone just sent word that Yi Zichen has come to our life planet to receive Her Holiness's confirm it. Big sis. Let him in. I'll wait for him in the front hall. Wen Li instantly turned into a white blur and disappeared from the garden. The nine-faced overlord let out a deep sigh, then took out a communication device. Let Her Holiness Yi in. Chapter 2609. Zichen. Isn't the Virtual World Corporation the head of the 8 Titans? Why does it feel like they're preparing for war? It's like they're guarding against an invasion. Planet defense. Su Yan didn't know much about it, but she could tell the difference between laser guns and energy cannons. On the life planet of the Virtual World Corporation's headquarters, there was an energy cannon every 5 meters, a patrol every 300 meters, and a gate of light every 2,000 meters. It could be said that the Virtual World Corporation was extremely cautious. Not to mention an invader, even an ant wouldn't be able to get in. This was understandable on any other life planet. But this was the Virtual World Corporation's headquarters. There were overlords, sovereigns, and kings everywhere. There were countless nobles, dukes, and marquises. Who would dare to attack them? Who said the Virtual World Corporation is the head of the 8 Titans? Are you looking down on the Society of Supremes? Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. Huh? The Society of Supremes? Su Yan was stunned. You don't know? I don't, Su Yan smiled. It's your bro. My bro told me. The Virtual World Corporation is the head of the 8 Titans. I don't even know who's in the 8 Titans. Yi Zichen looked at the smile in Su Yan's eyes. For some reason, Yi Zichen felt a bit sad. He wondered how many people on Earth were like Su Yan, completely ignorant of the universe, and still had to face the various threats of the universe. As someone who roamed the world, he had never truly talked to them about the universe. You'll know everything in the future. The reason I came to the Virtual World Corporation this time is to have them build a virtual network in our Milky Way. When that happens, our clansmen will all be able to understand the universe. Really? Su Yan exclaimed in joy. Of course. Yi Zichen had already thought everything through and made up his mind. He didn't want to hide it anymore. Even if he was determined to hide it, the Milky Way galaxy was still leaked. Rather than that, he might as well put the Milky Way galaxy in front of everyone. He wanted the humans on Earth, the immortal planet, and the divine planet to be able to use the virtual network and understand everything in the universe. He wanted the Milky Way galaxy to no longer be a primitive galaxy. He wanted the human race of the Milky Way to be on equal footing with the human race of other universes. As for the others, how to defend the star system, how to deal with foreign invasions, leave it to him. That's great. When my brother came back, he told us about the universe. It was very interesting. Moreover, he also said that if we can enter the virtual network, we can find many teachers. This way, the overall strength of our Milky Way galaxy can be greatly improved. Su Yan's eyes were filled with joy. We couldn't even use the anonymous helmets you gave us before. After we went to space, we just watched your matches and didn't log into the virtual network. By the way, how was your match? I have been given the title of His Majesty. Yi Zichen smiled. He wouldn't tell her about the 8 trigrams diagram. If he did, it would only make Su Yan more worried. Your Holiness, it sounds very powerful. Of course, don't you know who I am? Just as Yi Zichen spoke, the person leading the way suddenly stopped. Lord Yi, you can't enter the spaceship in front of you anymore. You'll have to leave the spaceship. Yi Zichen walked out of the cabin. In front of them was yet another door of light, glowing red. Please. Yi Zichen walked up with a frown. Ding. Identity verified. Greetings, Lord Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen passed through the door of light and waited for Su Yan. When she arrived, identity verified. Lord Yi, this friend of yours is not a member of the Virtual World Corporation. She cannot enter any further, said a Marquis expert. A Marquis elite said, Don't worry. We will take your friend to the lounge to wait for you. Go on, Zichen. I'll wait for you in the rest area. Yi Zichen watched as the Marquis took Su Yan away. He frowned as he looked around at the remodeled planet. The Virtual World Corporation was truly a bit too cautious. Did the Tsangyue Galaxy really put so much pressure on the Virtual World Corporation? Yi Zichen had to verify his identity at every checkpoint. After a full 2 hours, Yi Zichen finally reached a floating palace. Lord Yi, the palace in front of us is the leader's residence. Not long later, a girl around 17 or 18 years old walked in front of Yi Zichen. Nine-faced Overlord. Overlord. Yi Zichen glared at the girl in front of him. If this girl was on Earth, she might even be mistaken for a high school student. You can all leave. Nine-Face Overlord waved his hand at the Marquises, and they all bowed in acknowledgement. I'll take Lord Yi the rest of the way. Understood. After the Marquises left, the Nine-Faced Overlord walked in front of Yi Zichen and circled him a few times. This was Yi Zichen's first time coming into contact with an Overlord. The strongest he'd come into contact with in the past were only sovereigns. How strange. I don't see anything special about you. Why did the Master of the Milky Way choose you? The Nine-Faced Overlord frowned at Yi Zichen for a long time. You really are the Milky Way's Yi Zichen. The Master of the Milky Way gave you the 5 elements elemental fairy? Yes, Senior. Is there a problem? Yi Zichen answered carefully. To his surprise, the Nine-Faced Overlord didn't say anything for a long time and merely stared at him. Senior? Yi Zichen asked tentatively. The Nine-Faced Overlord suddenly laughed. What did you just call me? Senior? Ha ha ha. You're quite an interesting kid. The Nine-Faced Overlord nodded in satisfaction. The Nine-Faced Overlord nodded his head in satisfaction. He pretended to be deep in thought as he said, That's right. There's no problem with you calling me senior. Remember, you have to call me senior from now on, got it? Yes. Good kid. I'm very pleased with you. The future Milky Way Lord is calling me Senior Nine-Faced. Ha. The Nine-Faced Overlord seemed delighted. I can smell the scent of a time elemental fairy on you. You can smell that too? Smell elemental fairies? Yi Zichen looked at the Nine-Faced Overlord in shock. Hee, isn't it easy to smell an elemental fairy? What's more, I can tell that it's an adult. The Nine-Faced Overlord laughed. The Nine-Faced Overlord smiled and said, All right, don't stay here. My sister is already waiting for you in the main hall. Let me tell you, when the time comes, you have to be careful of your tone. My sister is a supreme being, understand? Chapter 26:10. Actually, even without the Nine-Faced Overlord's reminder, Yi Zichen knew very well that he had to be absolutely respectful when he saw Wen Li. China was a land of etiquette. When facing elders and seniors, one had to treat them with respect. There was no need to remind them of such things. The palace floating in the air was pure white. From here, they could see the overall defense situation of a life-star. There were no attendants in the entire palace. At the very least, as the Nine-Faced Hegemon led Yi Zichen through the palace, he didn't see anyone else. Sister, Lord Yi has come down. The moment Yi Zichen entered the living room, he felt a strand of aura scan his body. He followed closely behind the Nine-Faced Overlord. When he raised his head and saw the woman lying on the seat in front of him, he felt his breath catch in his throat. Yi Zichen felt like he had seen too many beautiful women. As for the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, Su Yen, Su Luer, Su Zhu, they were all members of the heavenly Nine-Tailed Fox clan. There was no need to talk about their looks. The head of the Virtual World Corporation, Wen Li, Yi Zichen had once seen her in a live stream with his own eyes. Back then, he didn't deny that when Li's looks were 1 in 100 million. He could feel his heart trembling. It was breathtakingly beautiful. Several seconds later, Yi Zichen let out a deep sigh and walked out of his shock, then cupped his hands towards Wen Li. Greetings, Senior. Both Wen Li and the Nine-Faced Overlord revealed a strange expression when they saw Yi Zichen slowly bend over with clear eyes. The Nine-Faced Overlord was more surprised than Wen Li, and she found the situation more interesting. Don't stand on ceremony. Yi Zichen waved his hand gently and felt a gentle breeze around his chest. The wind was like someone else's hand, gently caressing his chest. Yi Zichen's heart trembled involuntarily. Before long, he pulled himself back from the precipice, frowned, and cast aside all distracting thoughts. No matter how much the wind wreaked havoc on him, he didn't waver in the slightest. Not bad. Wen Li nodded. At this moment, Shea also rushed in from outside. Yi Zichen. Seeing Yi Zichen in the hall, Shea ran over excitedly. Shea. Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. Not bad. You've also become the lord of the Virtual World Corporation. Shea patted Yi Zichen's shoulders. It's been a while. How strong are you now? Battle General. Not bad. Shea widened her eyes and raised her eyebrows. It's not too bad to become a champion in a few years. Unfortunately, I'm about to become an earl. How is it? Is it fast? Commander of the 9 heavenly layers? Yi Zichen glared at the smiling Shea, a disciple of cultivation. The further they went, the harder they became. When Shea left, her injuries hadn't recovered yet. She was only a cosmic system state. Even in his fully recovered state, his power was only at the universe level. Yi Zichen's progress from domain to champion was already extremely shocking. Wen Li could actually go from a universe to a commander. This kind of efficiency was really ridiculously high. He subconsciously glanced at Wen Li. Could it be that this was the benefit of having a supreme being as his teacher? Shai came. The atmosphere in the hall changed. She didn't care at all whether or not this place was occupied by a supreme expert or a peak hegemon. She was simply happy to see Yi Zichen and wanted to chat with him for a bit longer. Big sister. The Nine-Faced Hegemon sent a telepathic message to the front. Are you not going to do anything? Ow! Wen Li shrugged. 2 of the strongest connections in the universe met. One is the sister-in-law of the Milky Way, and the other is the heir of the Milky Way. How are you going to do anything about them? If it was anyone else, anyone below the level of a hegemon or sovereign did not have the right to see Wenli. Don't even mention Shaya and Yi Zichen chatting with each other when they came to her. Even a single cough from Wenli would cause those hegemons to tremble in fear. What could she do in a situation like this? Someone with connections. Not to mention her. Even if the Blue Emperor came, he wouldn't ask too much of them. You're finally here. I'm so bored staying here by myself. Are you going to stay here with me from now on? Shaya asked with anticipation in her eyes. What about the Milky Way if I stay here too? Yi Zichen frowned. Do we not care about the Milky Way? That's true. Shaya let out a long sigh, then thought about the Milky Way situation. How is it? Is the Milky Way still safe? It's far from safe. Yi Zichen frowned, then looked towards Wenli. I came back for this as well. I heard that your highness can bestow lands, right? Sure. Hearing this, Wenli nodded. Our Majesty of the Virtual World Group needs to become a Minister of Frontier Territory after becoming a Marquis. You can manage life planets for the Virtual World Group, where you can choose to work in the universe countries jointly managed by the 8 Leviathans. Then I would like to ask Senior to give me the Milky Way. Isn't the Milky Way supposed to be yours? Wenli said. I need to be taught. Yi Zichen looked up into Wenli's eyes. I need a document that is acknowledged by the entire universe to let those space pirates know that the Milky Way galaxy has a master. I also want to ask the Virtual World Corporation to send people to the Milky Way galaxy to build a virtual network. You're not going to hide anymore. Wenli said. Yes. Yi Zichen clenched his fist and took a deep breath. I'm done hiding. I believe you know that I destroyed the Tulip family and turned their life star into a black hole. Of course I know, Wenli snorted. It's precisely because of what you did that the Sanyue Galaxy's PR department has already sent over 10 emails to the Virtual World Corporation. You are a Majesty. You destroyed a planet, so they've come to find me. I believe you definitely have a way to resolve this. Yi Zichen's gaze didn't change. He merely shrugged. The reason I'm doing this is to instill fear in them. I want those who harbor ill intentions towards the Milky Way galaxy to know that if they dare to touch the Milky Way galaxy, they must be prepared to be annihilated. You make it sound so easy. Wenli squinted her eyes and rubbed her lips. But the Virtual World Corporation has to be at the Marquis level to grant land to Her Majesty. Normally, it's just a few life planets. There are no more than 15 life planets in a solar system. All of the planets in the Milky Way galaxy exceed a few billion, right? This scale is comparable to a universe country. How am I supposed to grant this land to you? I'm just going through the back door, Big Sister Wenli. Yi Zichen suddenly laughed and shrugged. We're all family, so why do we have to care about those rules? Rules are dead, but people are alive, aren't they? Chapter 26:11. Actually, Yi Zichen was a bit nervous. No matter what, Wenli was the head of the Virtual World Corporation. She had a high position in the human race and was one of the few supreme beings. It was fine if he didn't behave like a primary school student. He even ran over to get close to him. The moment he said that, Yi Zichen even asked himself if he had gone crazy. Just a bit of carelessness. But he couldn't even leave his ashes. Wenli remained silent for a long time. Yi Zichen, who ran over to get close to her, also stiffened during this short silence. During that time, Wenli's gaze towards him seemed to be examining him. Wenli laughed for some reason. Going through the back door? You really dare to think about it. What made you feel like you can act so fearlessly in front of me? Gulp. Yi Zichen subconsciously gulped. I feel like I'm screwed. It seems like I can't challenge the authority of Supreme Being. No wonder the nine-faced overlord reminded me to be more respectful in front of Wenli. Said, all right, then I'll go through the back door for you. Just as Yi Zichen was about to give up, Wenli suddenly shrugged. From now on, the Milky Way belongs to you. Oh, really? Yi Zichen exclaimed. His eyes were filled with fanatical joy. Wenli smiled gently at him, and then her expression changed. Of course it's fake. Are all the people from the Milky Way a bit stupid? Do you like to daydream? I don't. Saya raised her hand. You don't? Aren't you the one who thinks that you can become the overlord just by lying on the bed? Wenli glanced at her. Saya stuck out her tongue, but didn't say anything else. Yi Zichen. Wenli also looked towards Yi Zichen. Do you think that the entire universe belongs to the Virtual World Corporation in your eyes? Is it okay just because we said that we'll give you the Milky Way? Isn't it? Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. It's your big-headed ghost. Wenli knocked Yi Zichen's head. In her eyes, Saya and Yi Zichen were like two younger siblings that the Milky Way's master threw to her and asked her to take care of. Any newly born life star. They all belong to the Paragon Association. If they all belong to our Virtual World Corporation, then the universe will be mine. I'll directly give Star Lord Sangyue those sands, those scourges of the human race, all right? Belonging to the Paragon Association? Yi Zichen frowned. Even though the Paragon Association only exists in name now, and their overall strength is the weakest among the 8 major powers, there's still a management department recognized by the entire human race. Wenli walked to a seat in the living room and sat down. Yi Zichen, Shaya, and the 9-faced overlord also followed. I can't give you the Milky Way. Then what should I do? Yi Zichen frowned. I have to hold the Milky Way in my hands. Wenli looked up at Yi Zichen's gaze. From the look in his eyes, all he could see was the color of determination. Inexplicably, a smile appeared in Wenli's eyes. It seemed that the heir chosen by the Master of the Galaxy was finally ready to bear all of this. In what capacity do you want to own the galaxy? All of a sudden, Wenli looked up and said to Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen frowned. Of course I'm using my own identity. Definitely not. Wenli didn't even wait for Yi Zichen to finish before directly denying it. If you want to own the galaxy as an individual, then the only way you can have them is to buy them. If you go as the first discoverer, you will be given a discount. But I reckon that if you want to buy the entire Milky Way galaxy, it'll be a few billion primordial chaos. It's more or less possible, maybe even higher. A trillion primordial chaos? In other words, it was billions of universe dollars. 27 digits? No. Wenli was talking about billions of primordial chaos, which was 28 digits of universe dollars. How is this possible? Even if Yi Zichen sold everything he had in the second universe, he wouldn't have that much money. Can I contact the Universe Union Bank's Blue Emperor? Can I borrow some from him? Yi Zichen rubbed his hands. The 9-faced overlord glared at Yi Zichen. Wenli couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ha! It seems you've already figured out who we are. You can even guess, Blue Emperor? Come, tell me, who else is in our faction? Wenli asked with interest. Yi Zichen rubbed his chin. The Spirit Phoenix Supremacy? The Fire God race? Not bad, kid. Wenli patted Yi Zichen on the head. It seems you've done quite a bit of homework. Why don't you borrow money from the Spirit Phoenix Supremacy? You should be on better terms with her. She doesn't have any money. Yi Zichen twitched his mouth. So you know as well, not just anyone can fork out billions of primordial chaos. Wenli leaned back in her seat. But don't even think about borrowing money from Blue Emperor. He most likely won't lend it to you. He's been in a bad situation lately. Previously, we thought about having him buy the Milky Way galaxy, then give it to you. Unfortunately, that plan suddenly fell through last year. Yi Zichen scratched his head. Then what should I do? There's no way I can buy the Milky Way galaxy. Aren't you going to ask about Blue Emperor's situation? Aren't you going to give him some financial help? When you heard you couldn't help him, you just ignored him. Wenli raised her eyebrows. What does that have to do with me? Asked Yi Zichen. Ugh. Wenli couldn't help but laugh. Kid, you really are worthy of being chosen by the Milky Way Master. The two of you are equally shameless. You're truly heartless. It's like you were cast from the same mold. Yi Zichen said nothing. In truth, he knew very well that Wenli was teasing him on purpose. If Blue Emperor's situation was truly dire, even if Yi Zichen took out all his savings, it wouldn't amount to much. He wanted to help. Unfortunately, he didn't have the strength. Actually, there's another path in front of you, Wenli shrugged. Wenli shrugged. This is a brilliant plan that I came up with a few days ago. If you do this, then you can own the entire Milky Way without using any money. How do I do it? Yi Zichen frowned. It's just that this method might be extremely dangerous for you. You might just become a Milky Way lord and die on the very next day. Wenli's gaze suddenly turned cold. Can you accept that? What should I do? Asked Yi Zichen. You. Pretend to be the Milky Way Master. Chapter 26:12. Master of the Galaxy. Disguise. Yi Zichen looked up at the head of the Virtual World Corporation, Wen Li, for several minutes. Just what is this big shot thinking? How am I going to pretend to be the Master of the Galaxy? The Master of the Galaxy is a supreme existence, and I've only just reached the Warlord level. How am I going to pretend to be the Master of the Galaxy and take over the Milky Way? Big sister, are you sure you're serious? Yi Zichen looked at Wen Li in shock. He couldn't help but ask. I think it's possible. Wen Li crossed her arms and looked Yi Zichen up and down. You have all the qualifications to pretend to be the Master of the Galaxy. I'd like to hear the details. Yi Zichen said seriously. He really wanted to know what Wen Li was thinking. It was very possible that they were thinking in completely different ways. The most iconic representation of the Master of the Galaxy. Elemental spirits of the 5 elements. Wen Li hooked her finger, and Yi Zichen felt as if laws were flowing through the room. Then, it was as if his arm had lost control of itself. The 5 elemental fairies left his arm, and he looked around in confusion. Hey, hello. Do you still remember me? Wen Li waved towards the elemental spirits. The elemental spirits all looked at her in confusion, then looked towards Yi Zichen without saying anything. Wen Li shrugged helplessly when she noticed the elemental spirits' gazes. They don't seem to recognize me. Wen Li let out a deep sigh. That's true. If the Master of the Galaxy wanted to give you the elemental spirits, you definitely wouldn't have been able to accept it with the strength of their Elf King. With that, Wen Li looked towards the elemental spirits. Hello, I'm Wen Li, the head of the Virtual World Corporation. Wind Fairy should have a deeper impression of me. We've interacted quite a bit in the past. Wen Li glanced at the Wind Fairy. Wind Fairy frowned and looked at Wen Li silently. Even though she, who was in her youth and about to mature, had recovered some of her memories, she still didn't have a deep impression of Wen Li. What she didn't know was that Yi Zichen's heart was extremely solemn. This is a supreme existence. Without his permission, his elemental spirits of the 5 elements automatically appeared from his arm after Wen Li hooked her fingers twice. She believed that with her abilities, it would be a piece of cake for her to capture these elemental spirits. The elemental spirits had no impression of him. Wen Li did not say anything else, and merely raised her eyebrows towards Yi Zichen. The elemental spirits of the 5 elements are the symbol of the Master of the Galaxy. You have the elemental spirits of the 5 elements. This is the biggest reason why you can disguise as the Master of the Galaxy. Big Sister Wen Li, but I'm not a supreme being. Yi Zichen frowned. Reincarnation, Wen Li said without any hesitation. In this universe, no one knows where the Milky Way Master is. No one knows if he's dead or alive. Therefore, no one knew whether he had reincarnated or not. Moreover, reincarnation has happened to the Master of the Galaxy before. Now you can become the reincarnation of the Master of the Galaxy and gain his trust. Reincarnation, Yi Zichen muttered with a frown. In truth, no matter how much Yi Zichen thought about it, it was pointless. He didn't know much about anything, and he had no way of knowing what the consequences of saying he'd reincarnated would be. All he could do now was listen to Wen Li. Under these circumstances, I will let the Milky Way reappear in the universe, in the eyes of countless humans. Your appearance as the reincarnation of the Master of the Galaxy will prove that this is the Milky Way. As for how to explain it, you'll have to figure it out yourself. If you think it's feasible, then Blue Emperor and I will be your witnesses. I will also turn your elemental spirit into an elemental spirit king for a short period of time. When that happens, the elemental spirit king and the 2 of us will testify for you, and your title as the reincarnation of the Master of the Galaxy will be proven. When that happens, the Milky Way will naturally belong to you. Everyone in the hall was dumbfounded. Even the 9-faced overlord hadn't expected Wen Li to say something like this. She wanted Yi Zichen to disguise himself as the Master of the Galaxy. Based on what Wen Li had said so far, there didn't seem to be much of a problem. Wen Li and Blue Emperor had extremely high statuses in the universe. Their words carried a lot of weight. Naturally, they were more trustworthy. If the two of them appeared as witnesses, over 90% of the human race would likely believe that Yi Zichen was the master of the galaxy. But those people in the Tsan US system won't believe it, right? Yi Zichen frowned. Of course not. Wenli nodded but didn't stop talking. This method can only fool the humans in the universe, as well as a few other races. Only the higher-ups of the human race, those who don't care too much about the master of the galaxy, might believe it. Anyone who pays attention to the master of the galaxy, whether they're friend or foe, they'll know that it's all fake. Then, Yi Zichen hesitated. It's enough that we can fool those humans, Wenli smiled. The corners of Wenli's mouth rose slightly. Sometimes, the influence of public opinion is greater than anything else. So long as those humans believe you to be the master of the galaxy, the Milky Way must belong to you. No matter what the Society of Supremes or the people in the Tsan US system do, they can't interfere. The Milky Way belongs to you. Then let's do it. Since it was so foolproof, there was no reason for Yi Zichen to hesitate. But you need to understand, if you really do this, you'll indeed have a complete Milky Way, but your identity will be completely exposed. Your identity as a seed left behind by the Master of the Galaxy will be completely proven. The Master of the Galaxy was incredibly strong back in the day. He has many friends in the universe, but he has many enemies as well. You can see the Tsan US system, and there are many others who are watching you from the shadows. They might try to assassinate you at all costs. Also, your elemental spirits of the 5 elements will be exposed. Even if I can temporarily turn them into elven kings, that's just a disguise. As long as they want to investigate, they'll be able to confirm that your elemental spirits aren't elven kings. And the most important point is the universe outsiders. The Master of the Galaxy is always number 1 on the assassinations list of the other races. In the past, the other races sent over 40 overlords to infiltrate the human race in disguise. The Master of the Galaxy is a thorn in their hearts. Disguise yourself as the Master of the Galaxy. If they find out, they won't let you go, regardless of whether you're real or fake. That's what you need to face. Think it through. Chapter 26:13. Consider. Was there a need to consider such a thing? Did you receive the mail? What mail? An email from the Virtual World Group. Take a look. The Society of Supremes sent an email through the Virtual World Group. The Master of the Galaxy has reincarnated. What? Virtual network. In this world built entirely on the internet, similar scenes were playing out everywhere. Not only on the internet, in the real world of the human universe, news of the Master of the Galaxy's reincarnation was also spreading. Almost everyone in the universe was talking about it. Do you know that the Master of the Galaxy has reincarnated again? How could I not know? I heard that the Master of the Galaxy reincarnated to rebuild the galaxy. Yes, I heard that too. I heard that the size of the galaxy this time is a quarter of the previous galaxy. Although it is smaller than the previous galaxy, the Master of the Galaxy is really not an ordinary person. He can actually create his own galaxy. Look at who he is, the strongest person of the human race. Some people are going to be unlucky. The people who destroyed the galaxy and those who hid it when it was down. The Master of the Galaxy is back. I wonder if they are afraid of death. If I were the Master of the Galaxy, I would definitely not let them go. They must be scared to death now. I heard that the day after tomorrow, the Master of the Galaxy will receive the new galaxy. The virtual network and the universal projection will broadcast it at the same time. We are all waiting for that day. The news of the Master of the Galaxy reincarnating and returning with the new galaxy spread like wildfire. Many forces of the human race received this news. Just as the human race had said, when the Milky Way was in dire straits, those who hit them when they were down were all feeling insecure. No matter how strong the Master of the Galaxy was after reincarnation, they were all masters of the galaxy. Even if they were at the domain level, the name of the Master of the Galaxy was enough to suppress the entire universe. Moreover, the last time he reincarnated, the Master of the Galaxy took less than 2 million years to become a Supreme. This time, it might be even faster. Song Yue Galaxy. Master of the Galaxy, have you heard? The Master of the Galaxy has reincarnated. In the Blue Palace, dozens of projections were projected into the palace. In the middle of the palace, a brown-haired youth sat on a seat, looking at these people leisurely. Master of the Galaxy, what should we do? These people were a group of people who had once hit the Milky Way when it was down in order to cling onto the Sangua Galaxy. The weakest person standing here was a king. The reincarnation of the Master of the Galaxy? The young man laughed disdainfully. Do you really believe this news? Master of the Galaxy, you mean? The Master of the Galaxy has been targeted by my main body. It won't be long before he dies. You don't have to worry about this. Go back and prepare for battle. Once the Master of the Galaxy is dead, we can move on to the next step of the plan. Star-Lord, is what you said true? An Overlord-level expert frowned and said, if your true body is keeping an eye on the Galaxy Master, then who is the person that the Paragon Association is going to confer the Galaxy to in a few days? The successor left behind by the Master of the Galaxy. Sangua sat lazily in his seat. It's most likely Wen Li and Blue Emperor's idea. Star-Lord, even if this person is the heir of the Milky Way Master, we can't let him grow. Another supreme-level expert frowned. Should we take advantage of the fact that he hasn't fully matured in? No need. Sangua's expression didn't change in the slightest. They've indeed obtained the Galaxy, but the way I see it, this is a stupid move. We're not the only ones who want to kill the Master of the Galaxy. Have you forgotten that there are still those guys outside? You mean the outsiders? Machem, but Your Excellency, the Master of the Galaxy once left a spy in the human universe. If the Master of the Galaxy's successor calls for help, those spies. Don't worry, Sangua didn't seem to mind at all. That kid Yuzichin can't use those spies. Do you think the Overlord-level experts will listen to him? Perhaps the earliest possibility is that after a long time, when a person has enjoyed the feeling of power, he will be reluctant to hand over this power to others. In a palace somewhere in the universe. Big Bro, the Master of the Galaxy's successor has appeared. I know. A human with a pair of white wings on his back sat cross-legged on the ground, holding an ancient book in his hands. This human looked a bit like the Milky Way's angel race. His whole body exuded a kind of holy aura, and his face also gave people a feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze. The one reporting was a tiger expert. His entire body was covered in tiger stripes, and his muscles brimmed with explosive power. What should we do? Do as usual. Do as usual? You mean? The tiger overlord frowned. If that person is the true successor, then he has the machine race's photon computer, which the Master of the Galaxy left behind. That photon computer knows of our existence, so if he comes looking for us now, he can give us some help. If he wants to be the leader here, then don't acknowledge his identity. Big Bro, the man behind the winged man, was stunned. If we do that, what if the Master of the Galaxy comes looking for us? He's going to die soon. The man closed the book and took a deep breath. At most 2 months, or at least a few days. The Master of the Galaxy will die. The Tiger Tribe's overlord was stunned for a moment by his confident tone. Big Bro, how did you know? The Tiger overlord frowned. Have you always been paying attention to the Master of the Galaxy? Then why have we never gone to help the Master of the Galaxy? Why should we go? Suddenly, the angelic man turned around. His cold gaze and tone left the Tiger overlord speechless for a long time. Do you want to be a slave for the rest of your life? Second brother, don't you think this is actually an opportunity for us? The angelic man's eyes were filled with fanaticism. Now that the dark net is in the hands of us two brothers, if we don't acknowledge the successor, who will? Big Bro, why do we have to live like slaves when we are all overlords? We should live for ourselves. Now is the best time for us to live for ourselves. The angelic man patted the Tiger overlord's shoulder twice. Inform all members of the dark net to get ready. It's time to divide the territory. Chapter 26:14. Big Brother. The Tiger Man overlord was flabbergasted. He raised his head and looked in front of him. From his eyes, he seemed to be able to see his sickly older brother. They'd known each other for millions of years, but this was the first time he'd ever seen him like this. What are you waiting for? The angelic's face was twisted with impatience. Let the universe know of our existence. Go, big brother, go. Instantly, the angelic's expression returned to normal. He sat back down, picked up the book on the table, and began to study it seriously. The dark web. There can only be one true master, and that is me. The successor of the master of the galaxy. How come I've never heard of such a person? Song Yu's faction, the dark web, and many other powers began to make all sorts of preparations the moment news of Yi Zichen pretending to be the reincarnation of the master of the galaxy spread. News of the reincarnation of the master of the galaxy spread as well. Almost as soon as they received the news, it was as if they'd suffered a fatal blow. After a brief moment of silence, the other races, who were still in the midst of invading one another, put aside their hatred. They all had the same goal: the master of the galaxy. Until the master of the galaxy was dealt with, the other races couldn't continue their chaos. Within the headquarters of the Virtual World Corporation, Yi Zichen sat in his room, his expression solemn. Before long, he'd face countless cameras, broadcast live, and receive the Milky Way's confirmation. How is it? How do you feel? Shea walked in from outside the room and raised her eyebrows in front of Yi Zichen with a smile. How despicable. I didn't think you'd become the Lord of the Galaxy in the end. I wanted to be the Lord of the Galaxy myself. How's it going up ahead? Yi Zichen looked outside the room. The place where the conferment ceremony would be held was the exit from where he stood. Even though he was sitting in the room, he could still hear the commotion outside. It's a sea of people. Shea gave a direct answer. I just took a peek. The stadium can hold 100,000 people, but it's packed with people. In any case, when the time comes, you have to stay calm. There's no lack of people above the level of the king. Don't show any fear. I know. The master of the Milky Way was the supreme being of the human race. He had the memories of his past life after reincarnation. If he was frightened by a few kings, then he, the reincarnation of the master of the galaxy, would obviously know that it was fake. He had to hold it together until the end of the awards ceremony. Yi Zichen, the nine-faced overlord, walked in from outside. It's time. Hearing that, Yi Zichen let out a deep sigh, then slowly stood up from his seat. Shea clenched her fists to give her a pep talk. She did not have the qualifications to attend the conferment ceremony this time. All the best, Galactic Lord. Don't worry. Zhang Xian narrowed his eyes. Yi Zichen followed behind the nine-faced overlord. Let's go. The location of the conferment ceremony. The master of the galaxy reincarnated and returned with the Milky Way. This matter could be considered an important event that could shake the entire human race in the entire human race universe. Those who were able to attend the ceremony were all employees of various industries stationed around the Virtual World Corporation's headquarters. As for those who were further away, even if they wanted to come, they wouldn't be able to make it in time. Master of the Galaxy, Yi Zichen had only just arrived. A tsunami-like roar came from the scene, and during this period, there were countless auras probing in his direction. The nine-faced overlord's gaze darkened. Then he snorted coldly and dispersed all of the auras. How audacious! The nine-faced overlord squinted his eyes and looked down. Even in the crowd below, she seemed to be able to accurately pinpoint the people who had tried to test Yi Zichen with their auras. As her gaze swept past them, their hearts trembled, and they subconsciously avoided the nine-faced overlord's gaze. Yi Zichen, who stood behind the nine-faced overlord, raised his eyebrows. As expected of the overlord, even though she usually behaved like a child, her lord-class strength was real. In a situation where there were no supreme beings, overlords had the right to look down on the entire world. Lord Nine-Faced, everything is ready. At that moment, a monarch-level employee of the Virtual World Corporation walked towards them. The nine-faced overlord nodded. Suddenly, the staff member launched an attack. The nine-faced overlord raised his hand and grabbed the monarch's hand. In his hand was a G-grade laser gun. The gun fired and hit the nine-faced overlord's hand. If the gun hit Yi Zichen, even if it just grazed his body, it would still shatter his soul. You can't sit still anymore. The nine-faced overlord squinted his eyes, while the monarch's body rapidly expanded. You want to self-destruct in front of this overlord? Ridiculous. The nine-faced overlord's hand shone brightly. A cage that could be seen with the naked eye locked the king inside. At the same time, several employees rushed over. They captured the monarch. Take him away and interrogate him properly. Let's see just which side he's on. The nine-faced overlord said. Understood. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Yi Zichen stood silently behind them, feeling a bit scared. How is it? Scared? The nine-faced overlord glanced at him. This is just the beginning. The moment you decided to reincarnate as the master of the galaxy, you have to get used to it. I know. Yi Zichen nodded. Naturally, he knew very well that his situation would become very bad in the future. He just didn't expect that these people dared to attack him in a virtual realm corporation and right in front of the nine-faced overlord. Just how much do they hate the master of the galaxy? Yi Zichen shrugged. It's not hate, it's fear, said the nine-faced overlord. You don't know the former master of the galaxy's status in the universe. His survival would have an impact on countless people. They don't dare to let you mature, so they have to deal with you while you're still weak. Once you mature, even if you become a duke or above, given the master of the galaxy's past reputation, they might not dare to do anything to you. No matter what, the master of the galaxy killed an overlord when he was still a duke. A duke killed an overlord? Yi Zichen was stunned. Was the master of the galaxy that fierce back then? With that, the nine-faced overlord waved his hand. Let's go. Big Sis and the others are ready. Go and accept your Milky Way's reward. Chapter 26:15. Master of the Milky Way. Master of the Milky Way. Master of the Milky Way. Voices rose and fell in the hall. Yi Zichen followed the nine-faced overlord to the center of the hall. How does it feel to be assassinated? Wenli walked up and whispered into Yi Zichen's ear. Everyone had seen the assassination attempt, but when Li and the others hadn't done anything. She knew very well that with the nine-faced overlord present, there wouldn't be any problems. As for the assassination attempt, she'd done it on purpose for everyone to see, to let them know the master of the Milky Way's predicament. Then, she'd go back and announce it, giving Yi Zichen a certain amount of protection. Milky Way. Emperor Lan walked up to them from afar. This was Yi Zichen's first time meeting Emperor Lan, but from her expression, it was as if they'd been good friends for many years. Emperor Lan, let's go. It's great that you reincarnated. Emperor Lan patted Yi Zichen's shoulder affectionately. At the same time, Yi Zichen received a transmission in his mind. Relax. The live stream and projection might have already started. Remember, the moment you enter the hall, you were the master of the Milky Way. He raised his hand and looked at Blue Emperor. He saw Blue Emperor smiling back at him. Her gaze was gentle. Wenli, Emperor Lan, Yi Zichen. The three of them sat in the middle of the hall. Before long, 5 majestic figures walked out. Elemental Spirit Kings. When Yi Zichen saw his elemental fairy appear in front of him in the form of a fairy king, he couldn't help but reveal a hint of shock. Look, the Elemental Spirit King. The people below also cheered and shouted loudly. The 5 elemental fairy king glanced at the people below expressionlessly, then walked behind Yi Zichen without moving. When he had said, she could temporarily transform the elemental spirits into spirit kings. Yi Zichen didn't quite believe it. He really wanted to ask Wenli how she'd done it. If he could master it and transform the elemental spirits into spirit kings in the face of danger, he might even be able to escape. A few minutes later, a middle-aged man walked into the hall. The people from the Society of Supremes are here. Countless cameras changed once again. When Li and company also looked over. When Yi Zichen saw who it was, he subconsciously wanted to stand up, but when Li pressed him down. Don't worry about him. You are the master of the Milky Way, the reincarnation of the Supreme One. The person who came was only a half-step supremacy. He did not have the qualifications to make you stand up to welcome him. When the time comes, just watch Blue Emperor. Do whatever he does. When Li's voice transmission came one after another, Yi Zichen understood. He watched as the king of the Supreme Society walked up to Wen Li and the Blue Emperor. Leader Wen Li, Leader Lan Di, and the Master of the Galaxy. The Blue Emperor nodded indifferently. Yi Zichen copied him and glanced at the king, then looked away expressionlessly. The monarch's expression could not help but be a little embarrassed. The people from the association all knew that this job would not be easy, so no one was willing to do it. Pushing him here, as expected, in front of these three utmost beings, even if he were an overlord, let alone a country king, he wouldn't be able to get any respect from them. Furthermore, it was said that the relationship between the Virtual World Corporation and the Universe Union Bank wasn't particularly good with the Supremes Association. As for the Milky Way, the Paragon Association had once issued orders to capture the people of the Milky Way galaxy and even labeled them as traitors. As the reincarnation of the Master of the Galaxy, it would be strange if he had any respect for the Society of Supremes. The Supremes Association had returned here. In order to ease the relationship between the three parties, all this disrespect was acceptable. He quietly sat down on the empty seat. At this moment, Wen Li also spoke up. Can the conferment ceremony begin? Of course. The king of the Sovereign Association nodded. Everything will be done according to your time. If you feel that it is time to start, then we will start. If you want to wait a little longer, we can also wait a little longer. Why didn't your old man come in person? Wen Li glanced at the king of the Sovereign Association. Could it be that he doesn't wish to see the reincarnation of the student he was so proud of? Don't you want to say something to his students? Wen Li, Lan Di frowned. They were here for the conferment ceremony. He did not want to complicate matters here. Wen Li frowned as he was reprimanded. She just wanted to find trouble with that old fellow. How did the Master of the Galaxy treat him back then? How did he get his current position? But in the end, how did that old fellow do it? The king had an awkward smile on his face. This kind of grudge was a grudge between the supreme beings above them. He was just a monarch, so what could he say? Forget it, let's begin. Wen Li let out a light breath. She also knew that they had to succeed in conferment this time. As for the grudge with the Sovereign Association, there would be time to settle it in the future. Hurry, hurry, hurry. The Master of the Galaxy has reincarnated. The conferment ceremony is about to begin. In the human universe, countless people were sitting at home, either entering the virtual network or watching through the projection of the planet. The Master of the Galaxy has reincarnated again. Flame Rat sat in the living room. Beside him were Bai Yu, Hua Jianro, and Meng Luo. The four of them gathered again, waiting for the conferment ceremony to begin. Little Bai, you know that the future is still alive, right? Hua Jianro said. I know. Bai Yu nodded, his expression somewhat comforted. He contacted me. We contacted you too, okay? Hua Jianro rolled her eyes. That Shitu's family was exterminated? Yes, not a single one was spared. Bai Yu said coldly. Did anyone come looking for your family? Hua Jianro frowned. Bai Yu shook his head lightly. Not yet. My father said that there might be trouble, but this situation is no longer important. Do you think that the reincarnated Master of the Galaxy will affect the situation of the human race? Flame Rat said. My family said that the main reason for the human race's split is that the Master of the Galaxy has disappeared. Now, the Master of the Galaxy has returned with the galaxy. Who knows? Hua Jianro shrugged. The human heart is very difficult to understand. If those schemers really want to split, what do you think a newly reincarnated Master of the Galaxy can do? Everyone was silent. Even if the reincarnated Master of the Galaxy was a Supremes in the past, after reincarnation, he would at most be an Earl, or even worse. At this time, he really could not do anything. Hey, it's starting. Suddenly, the scene of the scene appeared on the projection. Flame Rat waved his hand and shouted. Everyone went over, while the Flame Rat also opened his eyes wide. Wow, Elemental Spirit King, so cool. Spirit King, the only human with an elemental spirit, is the Master of the Galaxy. Hua Jianro also spoke up. However, Meng Luo pointed at the projection with a frown. Look at the one in the middle. Isn't that the future god? When a future was mentioned, even Bai Yu's gaze tensed up. Everyone stared at the scene on the projection. Now, let's welcome the Master of the Galaxy. A voice sounded out from the projection. Everyone looked over solemnly, then saw Yi Zichen slowly stand up. F***CK. He really is the future god. HH. He's the master of the galaxy. Chapter 26:16. Dumbfounded. Flame Rat and the others are going crazy. The future great god they knew in the second universe was actually the reincarnation of the Milky Way Master. Damn, I didn't even ask for an autograph from the future great god. Flame Rat clenched his fists, excited and a little depressed. Who would have thought that a human powerhouse would meet them in the game world? No, I have to go to the second universe. Flame Rat shouted to enter the virtual network. Hua Jinro grabbed him. What are you doing? What do you think? Flame Rat's eyes were full of seriousness. The future great god is the Milky Way Master. He racked his brains to build power in the second universe. Doesn't that prove something? The second universe is definitely a turning point for the human race. Think about the great god's name. The future. Regardless of what the virtual world group said or how much the family valued the second universe, it was not as influential as the Milky Way Master. The reincarnation of the Milky Way Master was accompanied by huge changes in the human race. This time, he brought the Milky Way Master back. But after reincarnation, he did not immediately expose his identity. Instead, he entered the second universe built by the virtual world group to expand and gather power. Flame Rat is right. The taciturn Bayou hesitated for a while before nodding his head. The head of the virtual world group, Wen Li, is the best friend of the Milky Way Master. The virtual world's launch of the second universe was most likely instructed by the Milky Way Master. Maybe because of certain reasons. The virtual world group cannot explain everything clearly, but the actions of the Milky Way Master can prove some things. Bayou rubbed his chin and looked at the projection in front of him. I have to make a trip back to the clan. Little Bai, what are you trying to say? Hua Jinro frowned. She did not really understand Bayou's words. The fusion of the universes is inevitable. Bayou said, of course we all know that. Hua Jinro nodded. But we've never been clear about who's fusing with whom. Bayou said, that's right. Hua Jinro nodded again. Because we don't know how the fusion will happen, our families did not invest much in the second universe. Now we can be sure. Bayou said, it's our first universe fusing with the second universe. Bayou's gaze was grave. Believe me, it definitely is. Now is the most precious time to fight for territory. Before the fusion, we must obtain more territory. I'm going back now to discuss this with my family. I suggest you do the same. No, you don't want to watch the ceremony? There's nothing to see. It's inevitable that the master of the galaxy will be given the Milky Way. No one can destroy it. Bayou looked at the projection in front of him. At that moment, Yi Zichen walked to the center, while the king of the Sovereign Association also walked up. We've come into contact with the reincarnation of the master of the galaxy, so let's not waste this advantage. Right now, no one can confirm whether the first universe is fusing with the second universe. Whichever family has the courage to pour all their resources into it will win. With that, Bayou hastily left the room. The Flame Rat followed behind her and shrugged at the people in the room. I have to go back too. How did this happen all of a sudden? Hua Jinro pinched her head and hesitated for a while. Mengluo, I'm going back too. You're all leaving? Mengluo pursed her lips in dejection with an innocent expression. Then wouldn't I be the only one left? Actually, you should also. I don't need it, Mengluo shrugged. Hua Jinro nodded. That's true, your family doesn't need it. Then you stay here and watch. I have to go back. The ceremony. This caused the second generations of the universe to do their own things. Only Mengluo was left alone on the sofa. She tilted her head and muttered. No wonder the great deity is so amazing. So the great deity is the master of the galaxy. I just feel like it doesn't seem like it. Mengluo pursed her lips and looked at Yi Zichen in the projection, as well as the 5 elemental spirit king behind him. This spirit king gives off a weird feeling. It's true that he is an elemental spirit. It's just that the spirit king state is a bit fake. How strange. At the same time, at the border of the human universe. Your Ninth Highness, you've returned. In the hall, an old man with only one eye greeted the young man who walked out of the interstellar battleship. Congratulations, your ninth highness. You've cleared out a few more obstacles. There's nothing to congratulate me about. This person also had one eye. If Yi Zichen was there, he would definitely be able to recognize him. This was Kakaru, whom he met in the mercenary corps. I just want to survive. Why didn't I see any clansmen on my way back? What are they doing? Your ninth highness, the elder smiled. The Society of Supremes is currently conducting the ceremony for the Master of the Galaxy's reincarnation. The clansmen might be watching. It's already begun. Kakaru raised his eyebrows, then walked into the hall. Not long after he entered the hall, a projection was playing in the hall. Kakaru raised his eyebrows. Kakaru looked at Yi Zichen with a frown. Master of the Galaxy? Esteemed Master, the reincarnation of the Master of the Galaxy you mentioned just now, is it this young man? That's right. Looking at where Kakaru was pointing, the elder smiled and nodded. That's him. He's not the Master of the Galaxy. Without any hesitation, Kakaru shook his head and smiled. I know this person. We just got his contact information from the Heaven-Stealing Mercenary Corps a while ago. Actually, that's something we both know. The elder didn't seem surprised at all. It doesn't matter if he's the reincarnation of the Master of the Galaxy or not. He's definitely connected to the Master of the Galaxy. Otherwise, the heads of the Virtual World Corporation and the Universe United Bank wouldn't have gone to so much trouble to help him. There's also the elemental spirits of the 5 elements. That can't be faked. That's true. Kakaru shrugged. It's enough to scare the common people. I didn't think that my biggest gain from my trip to the Heaven-Stealing Mercenary Corps would be his contact information. Kakaru squinted his eyes and smiled, then looked at the projection. It's been conferred. Just as he finished speaking, at the headquarters of the Virtual World Corporation, where the ceremony for the Master of the Galaxy was being held, the king of the Society of Supremes faced the countless reporters below. From today onwards, Yi Zichen will be the head of the Milky Way and will be conferred. Chapter 26:17. From this day forth, I bestow upon Yi Zichen the title of Milky Way Lord. The Milky Way is its territory. The Milky Way enjoys the Human Race Universe Galaxy Protection Act. The people of the Milky Way enjoy the rights of universe citizens. Welcome back to the Milky Way. Welcome back, Galactic Lord. Half a day had passed since the conferment ceremony ended. The entire human universe knew of the existence of the Milky Way and the news of the reincarnation of the Milky Way Lord. Yi Zichen sat in the resting area. The scene of the conferment ceremony still lingered in his mind. What do you think? Wen Li, Blue Emperor, the Nine-Faced Overlord, and a few of Blue Emperor's trusted aides walked in from outside. Sister Wen Li, Senior Blue Emperor. Yi Zichen quickly greeted him. Sister Wen Li, Senior Blue Emperor? The Blue Arch frowned. What is this? My relationship with the Milky Way Master was much better than Wen Li's relationship with him. We were friends who went through thick and thin together. Aren't you a little too distant when you address me as Senior Blue Emperor? Brother Londi. That's right. Blue Arch squinted his eyes and smiled as he patted his shoulder. I still have things to settle at the Universe Union Bank. I'll leave the rest to Wen Li to talk to you. If you need anything, you can contact me or my subordinates. We'll meet in the second universe. Suddenly, Blue Emperor and the others vanished in a thin air. Wen Li looked at the place where he left and curled her lips. You're already so old, yet you're still acting young. Brother Londi, you're not worthy. Pooh! The Nine-Faced Overlord covered her mouth and chuckled. She was already used to this kind of thing. Usually, when Wen Li and Blue Supreme Emperor met, it would also be like this when Blue Supreme Emperor left. Yi Zichen stood silently on the side. It was better for a lowly warrior like him to not speak carelessly about the matters between the two supreme beings. Kid, no, Milky Way Lord. Wen Li cupped her hands, causing Yi Zichen's heart to tremble. Sister Wen Li, don't. Relax. Wen Li patted him on the shoulder and motioned him to sit down. Now your status is the same as us leaders. The Galactic Lord had the same status as the leaders of the 8 magnates. The Milky Way is not an ordinary galaxy. You should be very clear that the overall strength of the Milky Way in the past was stronger than the 8 magnates. At our peak, even if Blue Arch and I joined forces, we still couldn't compare to the Milky Way. Winley shrugged. Now that you're the head of the Milky Way Lord, your status has naturally risen. I think it won't be long before the Paragon Association sends you an invitation to the octagonal table and grants you the right to participate in the octagonal table conference. Yi Zichen hadn't even considered this. The status of a galactic lord was equal to that of the 8 magnates. They were qualified to participate in the octagon table conference. Previously, all he wanted was to own the Milky Way and ensure its safety. Don't be surprised. These were left for you by the Master of the Galaxy. There was a hint of regret in Wen Li's eyes, but soon after, she spoke very seriously. But you have to know that everything he left you is empty. You're in a very bad situation right now. Not to say that you're in prison. You're not far from it. You need to rely on your own strength to make your name as a reincarnation a reality. Even if it gets exposed later, you need to have enough power to deter others. I know. Yi Zichen nodded. Yi Zichen already knew what his future would be like from the fact that someone had disregarded the life of a country lord and tried to assassinate him right in front of the 9-faced hegemon. And this was only the Virtual World Corporation's headquarters. Who knew what would happen when he returned to the Milky Way galaxy? Actually, I wanted to give you the title of Her Majesty. I wanted to let you grow in the Virtual World Corporation for a while longer. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about it right now. What's more, becoming the Master of the Galaxy was your own decision. Big Sister Wenli, will the universe really split? Yi Zichen frowned after a moment's hesitation. Yes, it definitely will. Wenli didn't hide anything. The main reason there hasn't been a war in the Tsangyue galaxy yet is because the Master of the Galaxy is still alive. No matter how the Milky Way is right now, the Master of the Galaxy is still a threat to him. Anyway, you should hurry up and prepare for war, especially since you should try to obtain as much territory as possible in the second universe. If we really fight, I'll directly fuse the universes. Fuse? Yi Zichen frowned. Yes. Wenli suddenly snorted coldly. If Tsangyue wants the universe to fall into chaos, then I'll make it even more chaotic. After the fusion, there will be a war between the 2 universes and countless forces. Let's fight. Who's afraid of who? The Virtual World Corporation is huge, and the 2 Yao races, the foxes and cats, are both mine. What do I have to be afraid of? In the Tsangyue galaxy, a guy who relied on his own schemes and groveling in exchange for status, what right does he have to fight me? Wen Li's expression was filled with disdain. That if we fuse, are we fusing with them? Or fusing with them? Yi Zichen asked. We were fused, Wen Li replied. The resources in the first universe are already running low. That's the main reason we fused with the second universe. Since you brought that up, I need to remind you, don't waste the Milky Way's resources. You better mine them in the shortest amount of time possible. Otherwise, I don't know if the resources will fuse or just disappear after the fusion. All right, you actually need a few managers. Wen Li rubbed her chin with a frown. Wen Li frowned and rubbed her chin. When a 9-faced hegemon heard this, she puffed out her chest and raised her head, looking like she wanted Wen Li to choose her. You can't. Wen Li smacked the 9-faced overlord. With your personality, don't you think you'll explode when you get to the Milky Way galaxy? I'll help you choose the management team, then I'll send them over to help you manage it. I've also prepared the team for the virtual network, so you can return to the Milky Way galaxy now. I'm leaving. Yi Zichen nodded, then left with the attendants. During that time, Wen Li looked at Yi Zichen's back, while the 9-faced overlord tilted his head. Sis, why are you looking at him like that? It might be hard for us to see each other again. Wen Li let out a deep sigh. Huh? I'm talking about the Milky Way, Wen Li sighed. We might not be able to see the Milky Way galaxy anymore. It's fine if Yi Zichen doesn't inherit the Milky Way galaxy, but after he does, the Milky Way galaxy definitely won't appear again. That's why I wasn't willing to do this. Why? The 9-faced overlord didn't understand. Because of my feelings. With that, Wen Li turned around and walked towards the floating palace. Go and choose some of the people we've personally trained to be the managers of the Milky Way galaxy, then send them over. In the future, The Virtual World Corporation and the Milky Way Galaxy will be allies, but only allies. Chapter 26:18. The Milky Way. Yi Zichen had never felt so at ease before. From now on, the Milky Way belonged to the Society of Supremes, to Yi Zichen, who had been bestowed the title of Milky Way Lord. The Milky Way was no longer a native galaxy. It had complete laws to protect the universe, and its citizens would have basic human rights. My lord, we're going to build the virtual network right now. According to Lady Wen Li's request, while we're building the virtual network, we'll also be in charge of protecting the Milky Way, said one of the technicians the Virtual World Corporation had dispatched. Since the Milky Way was so vast, it was hundreds or even thousands of times larger than an ordinary galaxy. It was practically the size of a small cosmic nation. The Virtual World Corporation had sent a total of 300,000 people. They were here to build and operate the virtual network. Thank you for your hard work. This is what we should be doing. The country lord-level technical director smiled and nodded. Before we came, we saw that the Milky Way galaxy was in a dark spot in space. If we want to build a network, we need to separate the Milky Way from the dark spot. My lord, I wonder if you think. We'll do as you say. All right. The 300,000 technicians set off. Yi Zichen piloted the spaceship back to Earth. The first thing he did was release the humans from the survival base. The humans who had just returned to Earth were a loss at first. Soon, they recognized that this was Earth. After a brief silence, we're back. Yin Shang, the great sage, and Yang Jian recovered from their shock, then rushed over to Yi Zichen. Yi Zi, the Emperor's star, you've all worked hard. Yi Zichen smiled and nodded at them, then took out an energy crystal. It recorded the entire process of the Milky Way's conferment. I'll have to trouble you to send the survivors back to their former residences, then show them the contents of this crystal. What's in this crystal? The great sage raised his hand and grabbed the crystal. When he infused the power of the universe into it, he froze on the spot. Monkey, what's wrong? Yang Jian frowned. The great sage silently handed the crystal to him. Yang Jian frowned, then infused cosmic energy into it as well. They froze. Easy. They were so shocked they couldn't speak. From now on, I'm the Lord of the Galaxy. The Milky Way galaxy is no longer an indigenous galaxy and is recognized by the entire human race universe. In the future, no one will invade our galaxy without any qualms. Yi Zichen looked at them and smiled. When the great sage, Yang Jian, Yin Shang, and the others heard this, they were so shocked they couldn't speak. They were excited in their hearts, but they were also sure that all of this was not easy to come by. It was hard to imagine just how Yi Zichen had done it. He'd become a Milky Way's lord, and just how much he'd shouldered to ensure his clansmen's safety. In any case, continue with the announcement. After years of wandering, he had finally returned to his homeland. Living in the survival base during this period of time made the people on Earth, the immortal planet, and the mortal planet feel unprecedented pressure and motivation. Yi Zichen had become a Milky Way lord. Countless people cheered. Their wandering days had finally come to an end. But even so, this was no reason for them to slack off. I've lost it before. Only then would he be able to deeply understand how difficult it was to obtain all of this. From wandering to returning, and then from the survival base to returning to their respective posts, each of them had their own duties. Everything was in order and seamless. When he saw this, even Yi Zichen felt relieved. The current Milky Way needed this sort of situation. Only when the Milky Way's overall strength grew stronger could they truly be safe. The title of Milky Way Lord. At most, it was just a deterrent to a few people. After all, there were still invasions in the universe. Even someone as strong as Tianhai, a supreme expert, even he was threatened by invasions. Yi Zi, we need a professional manager. The great sage and the others sat in the room, their gazes serious. To put it bluntly, none of us are managers. Yang Jian and I are just hired thugs. You and Emperor Hades are just two hands-off bosses. Yin Shang's management isn't too bad, but if you ask him to manage an entire solar system, forget about everything else. Even the three of US couldn't manage these 3 life planets, let alone the entire Milky Way. Why do you say that all of a sudden? Yi Zichen arched his brows. He was still flipping through the documents he'd just received. The Milky Way has been incorporated. Yinshang clasped the documents. All 4,200 life planets in the Milky Way have submitted to Earth. They acknowledge your status as the Milky Way Lord and are willing to submit to our constitution, culture, and colonial rule. That fast? Yi Zichen glanced at Yinshang. It hadn't even been half a year, and Yi Zichen hadn't even sent anyone to attack those life stars. He'd only sent a few emissaries, yet they'd accepted him so easily. Yi Zichen was quite surprised. They were once enslaved. Yinshang shrugged. After you announced that they'd be released and returned to their original life planets, they were all extremely grateful to you. Then, we brought up the matter of the Milky Way Lord and showed them the conferment ceremony. They agreed without any hesitation. More than 10 life stars have given us the princes of their life stars to show their sincerity. You brought them back? Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. I did. Yinshang shrugged. I said no, but they weren't willing. Those princes were rather interesting. They weren't sad at all, and were instead really excited. When we were on the ship, they even asked me if you were taking in disciples. Huh. The people of these life planets were rather cute. Yi Zichen chuckled. Yinshang squinted his eyes. Emperor Star, don't laugh. What do you think we should do now? Those 4,000 or so life planets need our people as well. Now that we have so many life planets, how are we supposed to manage them? Do you want me to bring the leaders over? No need. Yi Zichen shook his head. Just let them manage Earth properly. Managing the universe requires both wisdom and skill. They have the wisdom and skill, but they're too weak. Then, don't worry, someone will come. Before Yi Zichen could finish, the door was kicked open. Yi Zichen saw the spirit phoenix leaning against the door frame with her hands in her pockets and a smile. Milky Way Lord. Hello. Chapter 26:19. Within the room, when the great sage and company saw the sovereign, they quickly greeted her. Regardless of Yi Zichen's relationship with the spirit phoenix, the sovereign was definitely a great senior to them. Sovereign, hello. The spirit phoenix nodded towards them, then glanced at the great sage and Yang Jian. Not bad. You're already at the universe level. It's nice to be praised by the sovereign. Even the great sage and Yang Jian scratched their heads in embarrassment. Sovereign, stop teasing us, the spirit phoenix smiled. Truly not bad. The spirit phoenix smiled. Supremacy spirit phoenix smiled. I remember that when I first came here, you were only at the celestial and nebula realms. It's only been a few years, yet you're already at the universe level. That's already very fast in the universe. The great sage and Yang Jian remained silent. Very quickly, they realized that the sovereign should have something to discuss with Yi Zichen, so they nodded and left the room. Only after seeing them leave did the spirit phoenix shrug. Not bad. I haven't seen you for 2 years, and you're already a Milky Way Lord. Big sis, can you stop messing around? Yi Zichen gave up his seat and let the spirit phoenix sit down. Big sis, what did we say last time? Didn't you promise me to take care of the Milky Way when I wasn't around? Aren't I busy too? The spirit phoenix shrugged. She also knew that the Milky Way galaxy was in trouble. It was just that it was already too late for her to return. Don't cause trouble for me here. I'm not your hired fighter. I don't have time to watch you take care of the Milky Way every day. Venerable spirit phoenix rolled her eyes. Fine, I was wrong. Yi Zichen quickly admitted his mistake and massaged the spirit phoenix's shoulders. Have you thought about what I told you? Actually, Yi Zichen had already considered the problem of managing the galaxy a long time ago. He knew very well that if he relied on the people around him to manage, familiarize himself with the process and absorb experience, it would take a lot of time. If it was a peaceful era, then there wouldn't be much to say. He could just absorb experience bit by bit. But that was the current situation. They didn't have that much time. The only person Yi Zichen could think of was the spirit phoenix. I can provide you with the manpower. Venerable spirit phoenix glanced at Yi Zichen. Just what? Yi Zichen quickly asked when he saw that venerable spirit phoenix wanted to say something. I'm afraid you won't dare to take it. Venerable Spirit Phoenix rubbed her chin and pursed her lips. There was a playful look in her eyes. Actually, even if you didn't look for me, I would have looked for you. I need some territory. Territory? That's right. The Venerable Spirit Phoenix smiled as she looked at Yi Zichen with a confused expression. You haven't been looking at the virtual network lately, have you? I didn't pay much attention. You can have a look now. Venerable Spirit Phoenix shrugged. When I came, I saw the people from the Virtual World Corporation. The network base station they built is already operating on Earth. They should be able to enter the virtual network. Really? Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows in surprise, then told Bailey to connect to the virtual network. Not long after, Bailey successfully entered the virtual network. It was no different from the virtual network outside the Milky Way galaxy. The Earth was connected to the virtual network. This was definitely a good thing for Earth. After a brief moment of joy, Yi Zichen also searched for Venerable Spiritual Phoenix on the internet. In less than half a minute, Yi Zichen was speechless for a long time as he looked at the Spirit Phoenix, who was sitting on the chair. See? Venerable Spirit Phoenix raised her eyebrows. You said you need a territory just to settle them down? Yi Zichen probed. Yes. Yi Zichen gulped. According to the results of his search on the virtual network, Venerable Spirit Phoenix had wiped out the human race's 9 great prisons. The 9 great prisons were now completely under her control. Big sister, you're really something. Even Yi Zichen didn't know what to say. She destroyed the human clan's 9 great prisons at the slightest disagreement. The 9 great prisons were now in her hands. He was a living sinner of the human race. On the virtual network, the Virtual World Corporation, the Universe Union Bank, the Universe Mercenary Alliance, the Universe No. 1 Arena, and the Universe Energy Management Bureau had all accepted the Supremes Association's encirclement and suppression request. It's all right. This is my promise to them. Venerable Spirit Phoenix shrugged with a smile. I just fulfilled my promise to them. Big sister, are they the people you mentioned? Of course. Venerable Spirit Phoenix nodded. Otherwise, would I have brought you people from the Fire God race? Don't underestimate the people of the 9 great prisons. It's easy to find a group of managers among them. Right, Chicano. He's among them too. Chicano. Yi Zichen was the chief steward of the Second Universe. When he wasn't in the Second Universe, Chicano managed the Upheaval Alliance in perfect order. The problem now is whether or not you dare accept them. Venerable Spirit Phoenix shrugged. So long as you accept them, I can bring them all to the Milky Way within 3 months. Once we're there, your Milky Way's defenses will be somewhat guaranteed. The people locked up in the 9 great prisons are all experts. You understand. Yi Zichen stood in his room and hesitated for a long time. Accept the humans of the 9 great prisons? If he really did that, wouldn't he be making an enemy of the Supremes Association? If he didn't accept them, Yi Zichen really couldn't bear to give up such a huge force. Let's not talk about anything else. Chicano was more than willing to accept him into the Milky Way galaxy. There were also the members of the 9 great prisons who'd already joined the Upheaval Alliance in the Second Universe. How much territory do you need? Asked Yi Zichen. I need territory with 10,000 life planets. Venerable Spirit Phoenix raised a finger. I'll choose the positions myself. Don't worry, since they're in your territory, I'll make sure they abide by your rules. There are that many people in the 9 great prisons? Exclaimed Yi Zichen. Not really. I'm not thinking about the future. Who knows, I might even pull in a few more people. Venerable Spirit Phoenix nudged Yi Zichen on the shoulder. Kid, you should be happy. I'm treating the Milky Way like my home. What do you say? Will you accept them or not? Of course I will. Yi Zichen inexplicably clenched his fists. The Supremes Association was nothing but a fart. They only existed in name. If he really accepted the people of the 9 great prisons, the Milky Way's overall strength would be on the front line. Even if the Supremes Association sent a crusade against him, he wouldn't be afraid. What's more, Venerable Spirit Phoenix had already occupied the 9 great prisons for nearly a year. The Supremes Association's clamoring for a crusade against her was all bark and no bite. I'll give you 50,000 life planets. Do whatever you want. The Milky Way galaxy welcomes you. Chapter 2620. He'd once haunted the human universe. It felt as if a great war was about to break out, but for some reason, it hadn't erupted in the past few years. Instead, it felt as if peace had returned. Many humans in the universe, they all thought it was the reincarnation of the Master of the Galaxy. This filled the hearts of those schemers with ulterior motives with dread. The human race seemed to have returned to its former peaceful times. The era of danger had finally come to an end. Many humans believed that so long as the Master of the Galaxy existed, the balance of the human universe wouldn't be shaken. Even they knew, those schemers hidden in the shadows wouldn't let it all end just like that. The alien races of the outer realms wouldn't allow the human race to return to a peaceful era either. They wanted to break the balance. The Master of the Galaxy had to die. Countless ambitious people in the universe decided to head to the Milky Way to protect the Milky Way, the Master of the Galaxy, or rather, the peace of the human universe. Of course, the Milky Way naturally wouldn't shut them out. Countless experts poured into the Milky Way, increasing its overall strength step by step. Of course, as these experts poured in, there were bound to be some spies among them. This was unavoidable. The Milky Way was enormous. It could nurture an astronomical number of clansmen. It was normal for there to be spies among its ranks. Even if it was the Virtual World Corporation, the Universe United Bank, these huge powers, they had countless spies within. As leaders, they were well aware of this. Spies wanted to fight their way in. There was no way to stop them. If you caught one, you didn't know how many others were hiding in the shadows. All you could do was investigate as much as possible. As long as there weren't any spies among the higher-ups, everything would be fine. Furthermore, the current period of peace was exactly what the Milky Way needed. What the Milky Way needed the most right now was stable development. In the blink of an eye, 10 years passed. The Milky Way, the heaven-stealing mercenary group's space station, inspired Yi Zichen. He hired high-level technical engineers and built several space stations within the Milky Way. Before, the Milky Way had to hide. Whatever it needed, it could only be bought. But now, the Milky Way had been revealed, and Yi Zichen was recognized by the universe as the Milky Way Lord. The Milky Way could hire these people without any qualms. Furthermore, the people they hired, when they found out they were working for the Milky Way, they happily accepted. Today's Milky Way galaxy. Although it had only been 10 years, the technology inside had changed dramatically compared to 10 years ago. Lord, the 45 space stations built according to your requirements have all officially begun operation. The technician held the energy crystal in his hand. A projection appeared in front of him, showing the positions of the 45 space stations. According to my request, the support should cover the entire galaxy? Yes. The technician nodded and said, the activity range of these 45 space stations covers the entire Milky Way galaxy. As long as it's within their range, it'll take at most 2 hours for them to arrive at the battlefield. Very good. Yi Zichen nodded seriously. Yi Zichen had asked many of the technical staff about the mercenary group's spatial jumping method, but even the former technical director of the Virtual World Corporation, Meng Tai, had no idea. In the end, they could only settle for the next best thing, building 45 space stations and stationing troops on them to become the guardians of the galaxy, patrolling the Milky Way, ensuring the safety of the Milky Way, and at the same time dealing with disputes within the planets of the Milky Way. Currently, the Milky Way galaxy had 360,000 life stars inhabited by the human clan. Most of them had come to join Yi Zichen after the Milky Way announced that Yi Zichen would lead them. Many of their former clansmen had returned as well. Yi Zichen didn't manage them individually. He separated the former Milky Way clansmen, the current Milky Way clansmen, and the clansmen who'd come to join Yi Zichen. That way, they wouldn't form small groups or organizations. Emperor Star, the Steel family's slave master is here, reminded Yin Shang. Yi Zichen smiled and nodded at the technical staff, then entered the interstellar battleship. We still don't have enough interstellar battleships. The R&D department's efficiency is too low. Yin Shang, if you have time, send someone to buy 200,000 of them. As soon as he entered the cabin, Yi Zichen said to Yin Shang, Emperor's Star. Yin Shang was stunned. He tapped his fingers in the air, then smiled wryly. 200,000 interstellar battleships? The Milky Way doesn't have that much money in reserve. No money? Yi Zichen, who sat on the sofa, was stunned. Do you think our Milky Way galaxy lacks money? In terms of wealth, the Milky Way galaxy was definitely one of the wealthiest. 360,000 life stars. 180 trillion human taxes. The Milky Way galaxy had plenty of energy planets. Mining energy was enough to make the Milky Way galaxy rich. Yin Shang, you're not stuffing your own pockets, are you? Please don't joke around. Yin Shang smiled wryly and shrugged. Just think about what you've been doing lately. What have I been doing? Renting slaves. The number of slaves you've rented. Their dormitories alone take up more than 20,000 life stars. What's more, you're renting them, but you're even paying them wages. Ah, that's right. The Milky Way galaxy's resources were an enormous treasure trove. Not mining them was a waste. Relying on the Milky Way's clansmen to mine them was a waste. Too inefficient. Buying slaves required an enormous amount of money. Renting slaves was the Spirit Phoenix's suggestion, and he'd accepted it. That was exactly what he'd done. He'd paid the slaves in order to motivate them to work. He'd let them know that they could earn money by working. They could rely on their own hard work to redeem themselves. This method greatly increased the efficiency of mining, but Yi Zichen didn't see any problem with it. The slaves' daily wages are a huge expense. Furthermore, you've bought quite a few slave galaxies, including the Shell Star, the Lion Race. You've bought over 40 slave galaxies in total. As for the space stations you mentioned, each one costs over 1 million primal chaos credits. 45 of them cost 4.5 million cosmic credits to maintain every day, and that's not even counting the resources they consume. Then there's the salary of our planetary system's employees. The universe clearly doesn't have such a thing as insurance, yet you insist on paying them according to Earth standards. That's another unnecessary expense. When he saw Yin Shang's bitter expression, Yi Zichen smiled and patted him on the shoulder. You're not putting the people first, are you? You're putting yourself first, but our financial reserves really can't keep up. We're barely able to pay off the interest from the Universe Union Bank. Yin Shang sighed. You want to buy 200,000 interstellar battleships? Each one costs over 50 primal chaos credits. Where am I supposed to get 10 million primal chaos credits for you? The Blue Emperor's money. We can drag it out. He should understand. There's no need to worry. Yi Zichen rubbed his chin. Actually, even if he didn't pay it back, the Blue Emperor wouldn't say anything. Even Yi Zichen couldn't do that, but the Milky Way galaxy was still developing and needed large amounts of capital. It was understandable that the Blue Emperor couldn't be trusted in such a short period of time. As for the others, warships must be bought. This definitely couldn't be dragged out. The Milky Way galaxy's warship reserves were too low. Doesn't the Milky Way galaxy have plenty of resources? Didn't you say we couldn't sell? Yin Shang rolled his eyes. You said we couldn't let resources fall into the hands of our enemies. Otherwise, every batch of resources we sell would be energy cannons fired at us. What's more, all the high-level resources are in the second universe. What about basic resources? A lot. Sell. Yi Zichen pursed his lips. But we can't sell to our enemies. Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. Don't we already have an exporter? You're saying, that's right, we'll sell to the Steel family. Chapter 26-21. Planet of the Future. It was a planet with life about a third the size of Earth. It was one of the smaller planets in the universe. Yi Zichen had named it the Milky Way's guest zone. There were no humans living on the planet, but there were some troops stationed there. Earth. Yi Zichen didn't want the residents there to be disturbed, so he placed them in the rear and developed the surrounding area into a strategic center to ensure the safety of the divine planet, the immortal planet, and Earth. For Yi Zichen, it was just as Sui Yun had said. In his mind, the Milky Way was just these 3 planets. If he had to compare the Milky Way with these 3 planets, he would choose Earth without any hesitation. Not long after the warship landed, the people sent by the Steel family came to greet them. Yi Zichen was rather surprised when he saw them. Previously, they had all been elders or guest chamberlains of the Steel family who had come to exchange slaves. All of them were his old acquaintances: Steelbad, Steelbear, and Steelkeck, Lord of the Milky Way. Steelbear cupped his hands. Steelbear looked at Yi Zichen strangely. Perhaps he still couldn't believe that the brother he once knew was the reincarnation of the Lord of the Milky Way. As for Steelkeck, his eyes were filled with awe. He had already respected Yi Zichen back in the second universe. After learning that Yi Zichen was the reincarnation of the Milky Way, he hadn't recovered from his shock for half a year. "Let's go in and sit." Yi Zichen waved his hand, and they walked into a palace. Given the efficiency of the human race, a palace in the sky would require more technology, but it would take less than half a day to build one on the ground. Yi Zichen entered the palace and sat down. "I didn't expect you guys to come this time." "That's right," Steelbear smiled. "This time, we brought a total of 4 billion galaxy-level slaves to mine resources and 200,000 slave supervisors. Didn't you guys waste some time?" asked Yi Zichen. Steelbear let out a deep sigh and nodded. "We, the Steel family, do feel very sorry about that. The main reason is that in these 10 years, our Steel family has already sent about 2 trillion slaves to the Milky Way galaxy, and our slave production is also—" "I don't need to hear you explain this to me." Yi Zichen cut him off coldly. "I'm cooperating with the Steel family because I acknowledge your family's abilities. Mr. Steelbard, I'm sure you're well aware that there are plenty of people who are willing to take up such a big deal as this if you don't." "Sir Overlord, you are right." Steelbad nodded. "Yi Z, don't be too picky." Bar couldn't take it anymore and said, "Your Milky Way galaxy is pushing for slaves too hard. Not to mention our family. Any slave merchant in the universe wouldn't be able to provide you with these slaves in such a short time." "Paul." Steelbad frowned. Bar lowered his head resentfully and heard Steelbard apologize with his head lowered. "My lord, please forgive me. My brother is not very sensible." "It's okay. I'm friends with Bar. I won't argue with him over such a small matter." Yi Zichen nodded, then rubbed his chin. "But no matter what, you guys broke the contract." "Yes." Steelbad nodded. "If Sir Overlord feels that we, the Steel family, do not have the right to continue providing slaves for you, then we are willing to stop our cooperation. At the same time, we will provide these slaves to the Milky Way galaxy for 200 years as compensation." "No need," Yi Zichen quickly said. "How can I stop our cooperation? If I stop working with the Steel family, then Yi Zichen really won't be able to find a trustworthy supplier. The Milky Way galaxy's mining process is endless. Since I'm giving Bar face, and you and I are both Her Majesty of the Virtual World Corporation, how could I argue with you guys?" Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. "Bar, you don't have to be so courteous with me. We're both Her Majesty, so we're good buddies." "How would I dare?" Bar stood up in fear. He didn't dare to think of calling the Milky Way Master his brother. "If I say it's okay, then it's okay." Yi Zichen walked in front of Bar and patted his shoulder. "Oh, you're Marquis now?" "Yes, that's right. You're strong enough to be my brother. Just call me Big Bro from now on." "Sir Lord." "Hey, don't treat me like an outsider." Yi Zichen patted Steelbad on the shoulder, his heart bursting with joy. The reincarnation of the Master of the Galaxy was really useful. Bud was such an arrogant man. In front of him, she was as obedient as a kitten. "I, the Master of the Galaxy, am willing to acknowledge you as my brother, Bard. I think you have the potential to become at least an overlord. There's no need for us to be so distant from now on. In the future, the Steelbad family can also come to our Milky Way galaxy more often." Overlord, Bar, and Keck felt a chill in their hearts. On the other hand, Steelbad's expression did not change much. He had always believed that he could become a venerable, an overlord. Now that the Master of the Galaxy had confirmed his belief, it only strengthened his confidence. Even if he called the Milky Way Master his brother, he was still Lord. Yi Zichen frowned. Steelbad hurriedly corrected himself. "Yi Ji." "That's right." Yi Zichen resisted the urge to laugh. He thought back to when he first met Bard. Back then, Bard had been acting all high and mighty. Now, He had to obediently call him Yi Ji. Little bro Bard. Yi Zichen put his arm around Steelbad's shoulder. Actually, Steelbad felt very uncomfortable being hooked on his shoulder. From his usual behavior, it was clear that he was someone who followed etiquette. He was high and mighty, yes, but in front of his seniors, he was humble and polite. In his heart, Yi Zichen was a lofty Milky Way lord. His arms were around the Milky Way lord's shoulders. I'll definitely accept your slaves. In the future, I hope you can be more punctual when you hand over the slaves. Otherwise, my losses will be astronomical for every day you delay. Yi Ji, don't worry. When I get back, I'll definitely have people supervise this matter, said Steelbad seriously. Yi Ji, don't worry. I believe you. Yi Zichen sighed and nodded. Let's put the matter of the slaves to rest for now. Let me ask you, does the Steelbad family lack resources? Resources? Of course we don't lack resources. I'm sure no one in the universe would say that they can't use up all their resources. I have a lot. How about I sell you some? Chapter 26-22. Steelbard. He was hailed as the most outstanding genius of the Steel family and the sole heir to the family. Although Yi Zichen was closer to Steelbard, in his heart, he felt that Steelbard was more suited to be the future head of the Steel family. Why would he think that? In truth, it wasn't that Yi Zichen had interacted with Steelbard so much that he recognized his charisma. It was just that some people, the moment you laid eyes on them, you felt like they should be a leader. Steelbard was that kind of person. He was a genius like that, the future head of the Steel family. Even the elders of the family respected him. In front of Yi Zichen, he was as obedient as a cute little brother. He allowed Yi Zichen to put his arm around his back, and his expression was cautious. What do you think? Your family lacks resources. It just so happens that I, Brother Yi, have nowhere to put them. I don't want to give them to outsiders. Although the current situation in the human universe is relatively peaceful, it seems like both sides have laid down their banners. But the factions are still on opposing sides. You know that, right? Steelbard nodded. Of course he knew that. The Virtual World Corporation and the Azure Moon Galaxy were clearly on opposing sides. Now, the relationship between the universe's clans and factions was also clearly divided. The clans and factions that belonged to both sides would only interact with the clans and their factions. Due to the discord between the factions, many clans that had once been friends with each other began to fall apart. The Steelbard family was a living example. The Steelbard family was absolutely branded as a faction of the Virtual World Corporation. After the Azure Moon Galaxy and the Virtual World Corporation became enemies, many of the Steelbard family's business partners stopped working with them. This affected the Steelbard family quite a bit, but there was nothing they could do about it. Brother Yi, what resources are you planning to sell to our family? Steelbard frowned. The Milky Way Galaxy is currently in a period of development. Wouldn't selling resources affect the outside world? Hey, for some reason, Yi Zichen sighed dejectedly, then sat back down in his seat. You're not the head of the family yet. You have no idea how difficult it is to be a leader. Inshang stood silently to the side and watched Yi Zichen put on a show of his exquisite acting skills. He didn't believe Steelbard would fall for his trap and buy basic resources that would be of little use in future battles. Steelbad was no fool either. From Inshang's point of view, those who could bear the title of future clan leader were not idiots. They all had outstanding points and keen insight. You want to take a look. Just how exactly was Yi Zichen going to get his resources out? In exchange for tens of millions of chaos crystals, he could buy a battleship. Basic resources. Not long after Steelbad said that, Yi Zichen didn't waste any time. He got right to the point and said he wanted basic resources. Steelbad was dumbfounded. Steelbar and Steelkek were stunned as well. Speaking of resource reserves, any family would have a rich reserve of basic resources. Moreover, the output of basic resources was very large. Even if all of them were consumed, there was no need to worry about buying resources. Basic resources were like sand and stones on the ground that could be found everywhere. Any life star or resource star had a large reserve. Little did they know that Inshang was even more confused. He'd wondered how Yi Zichen would package the resources he wanted to sell, But who would have thought that Yi Zichen would be so straightforward? Surprised, right? Yi Zichen rubbed his chin and took in everyone's gazes. I know that your family definitely has a large reserve of basic resources. It might be enough to sustain your family for 1,000 years. 10,000 years. Correction by Stillbard. More than I imagined. Yi Zichen wasn't surprised at all. Yi Zichen wasn't surprised at all when he heard that number. He merely shrugged. But I still recommend you to buy my basic resources. Not only do you have to buy more. I'm all ears. At that moment, Steelbad's attitude was very proper. Respecting the Milky Way Master was one thing. But when it came to the sale and purchase of resources, it was a matter of business. There was no way he would ignore his family's interests just because of his admiration for the Milky Way Master. He couldn't just blindly buy basic resources that were useless to his family. The same was true for Stilkek and Stilkek. Both of them had a good relationship with Yi Zichen, but in a situation like this, they couldn't speak up for Yi Zichen. The consumption of basic resources. It's mainly for daily consumption. Have you ever thought about this? Right now, your 10,000-year reserve is based on peace. Have you ever thought about whether or not your basic resources will be consumed faster if a war breaks out? Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. Steelbad nodded. Yes, I've thought about that. Even so, maintaining it for 100 years won't be a problem. What's more, there's still time to buy basic resources. Naive, Zhao Exine, who was sitting in his seat, coldly interrupted Steelbad's thoughts. Steelbad, you're too naive. What about me? Steelbad didn't understand. All of your data comes from the Steelbad family not being invaded. It's purely war consumption. But have you ever thought about what the war is for? Invasion. What's the purpose of invasion? Stealing resources and territory, right? Yi Zichen crossed his arms and laughed coldly. Are you sure that your family's resources won't be plundered? If they are, how long can your resources last? 5 years. Trust me, this is a very accurate number. About this, Steelbad was stunned speechless. Also, you said we should buy resources in times of war. That's a good idea. Basic resources are everywhere, and you can easily buy them. But have you ever thought about it? If a war really breaks out, money will be nothing? Yi Zichen twitched his mouth. When that happens, money will be the most useless thing of all. Money will depreciate, and the price of resources will skyrocket. In the past, you might buy a kilogram of resources with money, but in the end, you might not even be able to buy a gram with the same amount of money. Because if a war really breaks out, the entire universe will be at war. No place will be peaceful. Who will have the time to hoard such meaningless wealth? When that happens, if you run away with money, even if you have a few trillion primordial chaos, where will you go to spend it? There won't be anywhere for you to spend it. That's the advice of someone who's been there before. Money, keeping it is the most useless. Smart people nowadays are all using money to exchange for resources. Even if it's just basic resources, they'll save them. Do you know why? Steelbad was stunned. He silently shook his head. Because when the time comes, no one will sell it to you. Chapter 26-23. Yi Zichen glanced at everyone's expressions. The expressions of the 3 victims of the Steel family had already changed. Very good. This was the effect I wanted. Yi Zichen let out a deep breath, then purposely made the atmosphere even heavier. Sard, think about it. If a war really starts, then the entire universe will be in chaos. The law and order we have right now will be completely overturned. The bad side of humanity will also be magnified. If that day comes and your family's basic resources are used up, and you need to buy them, do you think anyone would dare to deliver them to you? Yi Zichen slammed the table. They who carry resources are a mountain of gold. Will the pirates in the universe let them go? Impossible. There will be very few who have the ability to deliver. However, countless families need resources. Why should they sell them to you? Do you know what kind of problems will occur then? Steelbad shook his head. Yi Zichen pursed his lips. Yi Zichen pursed his lips, maliciously raising the price. You need 100 of what you can buy with 1 universe coin. The family auctions, whoever offers the highest price can buy it. Yi Ji, didn't you say that currency will be useless in the future? Sard didn't understand. You misunderstood my meaning. Yi Zichen didn't expect Sard to remember it so clearly. Of course, Yi Zichen didn't panic at all. Currency is still a measure. Every commodity has value. If currency truly disappears, then how does the universe function? Currency will exist even in times of war. Currency will devalue in the future. I should have said it before, currency will devalue, but it won't disappear completely. If you spend your money now, you're actually making money. Think about it. Using a sum of money now to buy 10 times the resources in the future, isn't that worth it? Think about it. Think about it carefully. Yi Zichen's mouth was dry, so he poured himself a cup of tea and took a sip. In the room, everyone from the Steele family frowned. Go. I think Yi is right, Sard frowned. Steele Bar frowned. It's still very suitable to buy resources now. Look, my bro is quite far-sighted. Yi Zichen clapped with a smile. It's definitely worth it. Think about it. Are basic resources really basic? Actually, their existence is more important than any other rare resources. Think about it. The lack of rare resources, to you, is at most the loss of certain technology or facilities. If you don't have enough basic resources, your lifestyle can't operate. Basic resources are our lives. Rare resources are just icing on the cake. Let me give you an example. If you're in a desert and you are thirsty, what do you lack? Water. Water is a basic resource. If I give you a cup of magma marrow now, it's a rare resource, right? Do you want water or magma marrow? You won't die without magma marrow, but can you live without water? Think about it carefully. In truth, Yi Zichen wasn't completely lying. He was telling the truth. The reason why basic resources were so basic was because they could be found everywhere. Anyone could use them, and there were more of them. However, these basic resources were the foundation to sustain a lifestyle. Without basic resources, it was useless to have rare resources. Rare resources determined the upper limit, while basic resources determined whether or not you could have this upper limit. Still Bard was silent. He was persuaded. He was truly shaken. Even though he knew very well that Yi Zichen was trying to sell him basic resources, he also knew that what Yi Zichen said was the worst-case scenario and the most beneficial one for Yi Zichen. But it wasn't impossible. It was indeed possible for it to happen. The Steele family's several tens of thousands of years of business couldn't be lost. I have another question. After a moment of silence, Still Bard frowned. Go ahead. E.g., you just said that if the Steele family is invaded, then our resources will be plundered, causing us to lack basic resources. Yes. Then if I buy your resources now, then won't I lose even more if they're plundered when I return? Good question. Yi Zichen truly felt like the heavens were helping him. Everything was developing in the direction he wanted. You can find an absolutely safe place to store them. Absolutely safe. For example, the second universe. Yi Zichen shrugged. No one can rob you if you put them in the second universe, and you can take them out whenever you want to use them. The second universe? Still Bard frowned, then glanced at Bar and Cake. That game? Little bro, you haven't entered the second universe yet. Yi Zichen arched his brows. I want to take a look, said Still Bard. It's no longer a game. It's a real universe. When you go back, you can ask Bar and Cake to tutor you. You can ask Bar and Cake to tutor you when you go back. Still Bard nodded. If I put my resources there, they won't take them? Well, that depends on where you put them. Yi Zichen licked his lips and laughed. If you put them in your family's territory in the second universe, I can't guarantee anything. But if you put them in the Upheaval Alliance's territory, I can guarantee that no one can rob you. The Upheaval Alliance? That's the Milky Way Lord's territory in the second universe. Right now, half of the Milky Way galaxy belongs to the Milky Way Lord. In the first universe, there shouldn't be anyone stronger than the Milky Way Lord, explained Cake. Furthermore, the Milky Way Lord's territory has absolute technological superiority over the second universes. To the natives, it's like a 10th-level civilization attacking a first-level civilization. So that's how it is. Still Bard's eyes widened. It's nothing much. Yi Zichen shrugged. The Milky Way galaxy belongs to me. The first universe and the second universe should be the same. Big brother Yi, can I store my family's resources here? I can pay for them, said Stillbard. I don't have anywhere to put them. Yi Zichen sighed. I really want to help you, but I don't need that little bit of management fees, and my forces in the second universe are limited. Also, how am I supposed to store them for you? You have to have a territory, and you can just put them in your own territory. Territory? That's right. Yi Zichen grinned. It's territory. You know, Stillbard, I'm selling my territories in the second universe, and that counts as recruiting high-quality business partners. How about it? Are you interested in buying a life planet to play around with? Chapter 26-24. A Life Star. Inshang gaped at Yi Zichen, who sat calmly in his seat. This guy was too daring. At first, he wanted to sell basic resources, but in the end, he wanted to sell even a life star. As expected of the Emperor's star, doing business was full of surprises. The Steele family members were stunned. For a moment, they couldn't believe Yi Zichen's words. Yi Ziyu, Steelbar spoke up subconsciously. When he saw Yi Zichen frown, he fell silent. What do you think? Do you want to buy it? Yi Zichen smiled and crossed his arms as he waited for Steelbar's reply. I'll have to ask my elders. Oh no, Inshang's heart sank. If he asked his elders, this business deal would be ruined. He really wanted to know what to do with the Emperor's star. Sure. Yi Zichen shrugged without hesitation. As soon as possible. I have a lot of things to deal with in the Milky Way. I hope you can understand. The Emperor's star. Inshang wanted to send Yi Zichen a transmission. Just now, he felt like Yi Zichen had convinced Steelbar. Why did he suddenly want him to ask his family? Wasn't this just pushing the deal away? Even he couldn't send a transmission right now. Although Steelbar and the others wouldn't know the contents of his transmission, they could sense the fluctuations and know that he was communicating with the Emperor's star. Talk business. Things had to be said in the open. If his voice transmission affected the cooperation between the Emperor's star and the Steele family, as a consonant, he could not tolerate such a mistake. Time trickled by. Yi Zichen didn't see the slightest hint of panic. Instead, he seemed confident that this deal would go through. About half an hour later, when Yi Zichen saw Steelbar's consciousness return from the virtual network, he smiled. How much is your family offering? 2 million. That's too little. 3 million. 5 million. A life star that can house 4 billion humans and 1.5 million basic resources. I hope Steelbar can manage it. Steelbar frowned. Steelbar, who was called out, was also shocked. He looked up at Yi Zichen and saw that Yi Zichen was smiling back at him. That's right, I want Steelbar to manage it. May I know the reason? For someone of your status, to ask me for a reason. Aren't you overthinking things? Yi Zichen's gaze suddenly darkened. Steelbar's heart skipped a beat. He was too rash. Although this was a family business, the person in front of him was the reincarnation of the Master of the Galaxy. Only the leaders of the giants could communicate with him on an equal footing. Even the venerables and elders of their clans would respectfully address the Milky Way as Lord when they saw it. Ha, I'm just joking. Relax. Yi Zichen suddenly patted Steelbar's shoulders. We're bros, so I won't get mad at you. You want to know the reason? Very simple. Compared to anyone in your Steele family, I trust Steelbar more. Yi Zichen smiled at Bar. The territory that I've worked hard for in the Milky Way galaxy of the second universe has yet to be sold to any family in the first universe. I'm selling it to you because you belong to the Virtual World Corporation, as well as Steelbar and Steel Kiki. I need someone I can trust to manage the life planets I sell. It's that simple. Trust. It really was hard to find a way to retort. Steelbar looked up at Yi Zichen, who'd maintained his smile the entire time. He let out a deep sigh. Lord of the Galaxy. Impressive. Actually, this is already a very good deal. Yi Zichen got up from his seat and patted Steelbar's shoulders. I'm sure your family's elders know just how valuable the life planets of the second universe are. Furthermore, I'll give you one. 5 million in basic resources. 3,500,000 for a life planet. It's worth it. Perhaps. Steelbar didn't seem to feel like he was taking advantage of the situation. It's a very good deal. Yi Zichen smiled, then arched his brows at Inshang. Take the money. The Steele family was, after all, a prestigious family in the universe. 5 million primordial chaos. The instant Inshang provided him with his account number, he transferred the money back to Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen was a bit suspicious. Just how much money did the Steele family have in reserve? He regretted extorting too little just now. Big brother Yi, I'll leave everything else to Steel Bar and Steel Kiki. I still have a mission, so I won't stay for long. Yi Zichen watched Steel Bar leave. Yi Zichen held back his smile and smiled at Steel Bar. How was it? I was a good friend, wasn't I? F***CK. Yi Z, you're too vicious. Steel Bar hugged Yi Zichen tightly, his eyes brimming with excitement. I can actually manage a life planet. A life planet of the second universe. Steelcase also said with a smile, Young Master Bar, your status in the family will also rise in the future. Ha! Who told us to have such a good brother? Steel Bar's eyes filled with joy. In the past 10 years, he had worked hard for the family and started to focus on cultivation. The family's impression of him had also changed, and they began to rely on him. Even if he were to truly manage a life planet on his own, in his opinion, he might not be able to do it even after another 5 or 10 years. Yi Zichen merely said one sentence, and Steel Bar agreed. He would still manage the life planet of the second universe. Oh yeah, Yi Z, how do I get to the Milky Way? After a brief moment of excitement, Steel Bar froze. I'll send someone to pick you up. Enter the second universe right now. I'll get Chicano to contact you. All right. The excited Bar directly sat down in the living room of the future planet. Steel Kiki also entered the virtual network. Emperor Star, let them stay here. Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows with a smile. Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows with a smile. How is it? Now it's 5 million. Emperor Star, I'm curious. Why would they use 5 million to buy a life planet? What's so strange about that? Yi Zichen shrugged with a smile. Everyone in the universe knows the value of a life planet in the second universe. Perhaps my price is rather high, but I can protect them. Safety, that's the most important thing. If you can't even guarantee the most basic safety, then what's the point of being cheap? Won't they still get robbed? Sometimes, spending more money doesn't mean losing money. Get it done in one go, understand? Yi Zichen stretched lazily, then yawned. We're still short of 5 million. All right, let's go find the next victim and add 40,000 warships to the Milky Way. Chapter 26-25. Money makes the world go round. 40,000 interstellar battleships were transported to the Milky Way in less than 2 months. What do you think? Since I said 40,000, it means 40,000. Yi Zichen looked at the vast fleet, then arched his brows and smiled at Inshang. Imperial Star. Inshang couldn't help but give Yi Zichen a thumbs up. Some time ago, the Milky Way was still thinking about how to solve the deficit on its books. In less than a week, the Emperor Star had pulled in 30 million primordial chaos in revenue for the Milky Way galaxy. 40,000 interstellar battleships were purchased. After repaying the debts of the Milky Way galaxy, there was still more than 3 million chaos left on the books for the construction of the Milky Way galaxy. Simple. On the outside, Yi Zichen was a Milky Way lord. But in front of Inshang and the others, Yi Zichen was still the same old Yi Zichen. Give priority to the space station. Leave the rest to Venerable Spirit Phoenix's security department. In terms of resources, contact the Steele family and Planet Yin's family heads. Try to sell them our surplus resources. Of course, don't force them. They've already given me a lot of face by buying so much. We can get them to provide some customers. Understood. Inshang had saved the contact information of the people who bought the resources. Without the Emperor Star's permission, he didn't dare to act recklessly. Since the Emperor Star had agreed to sell resources, he didn't have to tighten his belt anymore. Was the Milky Way poor? The Milky Way galaxy was overflowing with wealth. Wealth was mainly reflected in resources. If the Emperor Star did not allow the sale of resources to the outside world, the Milky Way galaxy would not be able to open up a foreign trade network. There was no way for them to make a profit. I'll leave the specifics to you. Yi Zichen smiled. Emperor Star, then you. What? Can I take a break? Yi Zichen shrugged speechlessly. I haven't been home in 10 years. My daughter and son are already in their teens, but I haven't even hugged them once. Inshang laughed when he heard this. He was indeed too busy during this period of time. In the 10 years since Yi Zichen took control of the Milky Way galaxy, he'd practically spent all his time rushing about. He'd barely slept a wink. The Milky Way was able to develop at such a high speed. Of course, Yi Zichen's contributions couldn't go unnoticed. In ancient times, when Yu the Great was trying to control the flood, he passed by his house 3 times but did not enter. Now, with Yi Zichen developing the Milky Way galaxy, he passed by Earth tens of thousands of times without stopping. All right, Emperor Star, you may return. I won't disturb you if there's nothing urgent. Thanks a lot. Yi Zichen patted Yin Shang on the shoulder, then arched his eyebrows. Oh yeah, get in touch with Meng Luo's family more often. Her clan is rather large, so she needs more resources. Understood. Remember, Yi Zichen glared and reminded. Meng Luo was definitely a rich woman. After plundering the Steel family, Yi Zichen thought of the flame rat and the other cuties. Meng Luo said nothing. He directly bought 20 million yuan, which made him dumbfounded. Listen to her tone. Her family seemed to be short of resources these days. They didn't even buy a life star. They just wanted to buy resources. Got it. You can go back now. Earth. While many life planets in the Milky Way were undergoing modifications, Yi Zichen didn't do anything to Earth. The only thing he did was to set up a spirit formation around Earth, added a certain level of defense. As for everything else, it remained the same. Perhaps that was Yi Zichen's way of thinking. The way he saw it. It didn't matter what the universe had become. It didn't matter what kind of world he saw. It didn't matter how thoroughly the other life stars in the universe had been modified. He still preferred his original Earth. Only by returning here and seeing everything he was familiar with did he feel a sense of belonging, as if he'd returned home. Within a manor in the depths of a mountain range in Bingsheng, after cosmic energy entered Earth, vicious beasts ran amok. Very few people dared set foot in the depths of the mountain range, because all the vicious beasts circled the area. 10 years ago, a family came to the mountain range. From then on, the vicious beasts suffered. They couldn't beat them, but they couldn't run. It didn't matter what level they were. Here, they were nothing more than punching bags. From time to time, a few adults would bring a few children to practice with them. They didn't dare go all out. It was almost always a one-sided beating. It wasn't until the children were done and the adults brought them away that they could breathe a sigh of relief. They all knew this. Tomorrow, they would come again. The only good thing was that when they got hurt, Sister Angel would heal them. After so many years of being beaten, not only did they train their endurance, their strength had also improved significantly. Transform. Are you my daughter? How come you can't transform? Look, Mommy will transform for you. In a manner, a woman with the appearance of a young girl raised her hands, frowning and scolding a girl who was almost as tall as her. As soon as the woman finished speaking, she transformed into a golden dragon. The imposing draconic aura made all the vicious beasts in the forest tremble. Did you see that? You're a dragon, baby. The golden dragon spoke in the air. Mommy could transform into a dragon when I was 3. You're 14, so why can't you? Is your father's bloodline so strong that it erased Mommy's? How would I know? The young girl lowered her head in frustration. Yi Er and Yi Sin can't transform into 9-tailed foxes either. Mommy, Su Yin never scolded them. We're dragons. How can you compare yourself to the 9-tailed foxes? Yi Er can't transform into a 9-tailed fox, but he knows the 5 elements. Yi Sin can't transform into a 9-tailed fox, but she knows life healing. Tell me, why are you just like your mommy? You only know how to eat. The golden dragon spoke and quickly returned to her human form. I'm telling you, this is my first time being a mother, so I won't spoil you. I'll give you 2 more years. If you can't transform by then, I'll throw you into a dragon's nest. Tisich, this is my first time being a daughter. The young girl pouted. What are you in your rebellious phase? You're even starting to talk back to your mommy. The woman put her hands on her hips. I'm telling you, when I was in my rebellious phase, you were still playing in the mud. Nonsense, if I were here back then, would you be my mother? The young girl pouted again. I think you're in menopause. How ridiculous. I want Mommy Su Yin to be my mother. I think you're asking for a beating. Yeah, I'm asking for a beating. Come on then. You think I won't dare to hit you? The woman raised her hand and was about to hit when someone suddenly grabbed her arm. Kiki, how can you hit a child? Children are all like that. Can't you just teach them slowly? Chapter 26:26. A familiar whisper. Xia Kiki, who looked like she was about to make a move, froze on the spot. Her eyes twitched violently. She was a little surprised, a little expectant, and a little afraid. She didn't turn around in disappointment. Daddy! All of a sudden, Yi's eyes were filled with surprise. She leapt into Yi Zichen's arms and pressed her head against his chest. Daddy, I missed you so much. I missed you too. Yi Zichen rubbed Yi's head. Yi Zichen couldn't help but sigh inwardly as he looked at his eldest daughter. 10 years. For the sake of the Milky Way's future, Yi Zichen didn't return to Earth to see them for 10 years. He didn't expect that his eldest daughter had already grown up to be like this. She looked a lot like Coco. Yi Zichen's gaze was filled with gentleness, while Yi smiled. Dad, I'm telling you, Mom. Get out of my way. Before Yi could finish her sentence, she felt someone tugging at her clothes. The one who grabbed her was Xia Kiki. Xia Kiki frowned. She did not show any mercy to her precious daughter. Golden light lingered around her arms, and dragon scales could faintly be seen. Dragon power. Xia Kiki might not even use her dragon power to bully some small fry. Towards her own daughter, she was really ruthless. This is my husband. Why are you sticking stickers on him? Xia Kiki pulled Yi away and glared at her fiercely. She didn't look like a mother at all. Instead, she looked more like a young girl from before. When he saw this, Yi Zichen couldn't help but laugh. He couldn't help but think back to the time when they first met in university. After so many years, the people around him had more or less changed. Only Xia Kiki seemed to maintain her innocence and naivety. Don't even think about stealing my husband. Be careful, or I'll beat you up. Xiaka stared at Yi with a threatening gaze for a long time. When Yi revealed a look of speechlessness, she turned around and leaped into Yi Zichen's arms with a blissful smile. She wrapped her legs around Yi Zichen's waist and hung onto him like a koala. Big brother Zichen, don't be like this in front of your daughter. Yi Zichen shook his head with a wry smile. If it had been like this in the past, I would have let it go. Now, they were parents, and their daughter was right in front of them. Let's watch then. I'm so jealous of her. With that, Xia Kiki glared at Yi in a provocative manner. Yi Zichen also looked towards Yi. He saw Yi hugging her shoulders, and her childish face lingered with maturity and vicissitudes that did not match her age. It must be pretty tough. Yi, who received the voice transmission, was stunned. When she saw Yi Zichen's helpless smile, Yi shrugged helplessly. What can I do? She's my mother. I'm used to it. Kiki has always been like this. Understand her. She's just a little childish. To be honest, even Yi Zichen found it strange. He was a father. She actually had to explain for her mother to her daughter. I know. Yi shrugged. I've always given in to her. That's good. What are you two mumbling about? Xia Kiki, who was in Yi Zichen's arms, frowned, then looked at Yi Zichen and Yi. What can't you say in front of me? You have to secretly transmit your voice. Are you talking bad about me? Yi, did you complain to your dad? No, Yi Zichen explained with a chuckle. He had thought that it would be more effective if he did it, so that the mother and daughter wouldn't fight again. However, you guys, Xia Kiki pouted in confusion, then pushed Yi Zichen away and pointed at Yi and Yi Zichen. Oh wow, it really is the parents. They all say that daughters are their father's lovers in their previous lives. I still gave birth to a love rival for myself. Yi Zichen's mind was filled with question marks. Kiki, no, what are you talking about? Huh, you're starting to think that I'm talking nonsense and think that I've gone crazy. Xia Kiki's eyes were filled with disdain. All right, you're right. I've gone crazy. You guys are all surnamed Yi, and I'm the only one with a different surname. It's normal for me to be disliked. Kiki, I didn't say anything. Yi Zichen smiled wryly. He didn't want the mother and daughter to continue arguing, so he explained himself. You still haven't said anything. You're already speaking up for her. You're siding with an outsider. Kiki glared and pointed at Yi. She's our daughter. Not even our daughter. Kiki, stop talking to me. I can't stay in this house anymore, since you parents are of one mind. I don't want to stay here anymore. All of a sudden, a golden dragon circled in the sky. In less than half a breath's time, the golden dragon disappeared from the sky. All that was left was the confused father and daughter of the Yi family, who stood in the courtyard. What's going on? Yi also shrugged in confusion when Yi Zichen said that. I don't know either. I've never seen my mom like this before. Yi Zichen tilted his head and looked at the sky. After a long period of silence, he shook his head and let out a long sigh, then grabbed Yi's hand and walked into the manor. We don't need to go and see my mom. Your mom is at the peak of the star level. No one can hurt her. Yi Zichen rubbed Yi's head. Xiaqi's expression was still lingering in his mind. She was truly too emotional. That kind of emotion had already surpassed the level of acting spoiled. She had already started to act unreasonable, or rather, senseless. Xiaqiqi was rather lively. However, she knew how to act spoiled. Zichen, you're back. Not long after returning to the backyard, Yi Zichen saw Li Jiai, who was watering the plants. Her eyes revealed a look of surprise as she put down the watering can and ran over. Jiai's mom. Good girl. Li Jiai caressed Yi's face. Why didn't Kiki come back with you guys? Mom, Yi pursed his lips, not knowing what to say. Yi, go and play. Yi's eyes lit up as she caressed Yi Zichen's head. Okay. Yi ran back excitedly and looked at her excited look. Where is she going? The second universe, Li Jiai shrugged. Li Jiai shrugged. Didn't you say that we should all go to the second universe? Kiki didn't let Yi go before, and even if he did, he could only stay for an hour a day. Jiai, I wanted to ask you something. Yi Zichen nodded, then spoke up. What happened to Kiki during the 10 years I wasn't here? Kiki? Nothing happened. Really? Yi Zichen frowned. But why do I feel like Kiki? Her emotions aren't quite right. Li Jiai asked. Yes. Say, do she have postpartum depression? Chapter 26-27. Kiki got depression. How is that possible? In the front hall, Lu Jing held her face with shock in her eyes. I've been with Kiki pretty much every day recently. I've never felt like this. Lu Jing and Kiki were good friends. When she was still a soul and was found by Yi Zichen, she had said it before. It was very normal for them to interact a lot. However, Yi Zichen was a bit surprised. You and Kiki. Yi Zichen, who sat on the floor, glanced at Su Yan. I have been in Universe 2 for the past few years. Su Yan hesitated for a moment, then pursed her lips and said, I do care a little less about Kiki. Su Yan is a life healer. It's understandable that there are a lot of injuries in the second universe. Lu Jing shrugged and comforted Su Yan with a smile. The problem is, how is that possible? Xiao Yumei squinted her eyes and frowned. As the big sister of the group of wives, she paid a lot of attention to the younger sisters. She had also considered the problem of depression before. She cared a lot more about Kiki and the others. If Kiki really got postpartum depression, then she should have shown it in the first few years. But she was in a very good state at that time. If she really started to get emotional, then it actually only started in the past 2 years. Yeah, I think so too. Li Jiai let out a deep sigh. Li Jiai exhaled deeply. She frowned and rubbed her chin. About 2 years ago, Kiki would occasionally become a bit emotional. Actually, she's fine with us. The one she gets emotional the most is Yi. Did Yi do something wrong? Yi Zichen frowned. No, Lu Jing frowned. Yi has always been very obedient. In terms of being obedient, she should be the most obedient out of the children. At this moment, outside the living room, Yi and a few other girls around her age stood outside the door. Yijia, what are Daddy and Mommy talking about? I don't know. Yi shook her head, then pursed her lips and peeked at the adults in the living room. Actually, she heard quite a bit. She couldn't help but want to question herself. Just what did I do wrong? When she thought about it, she remembered that Kiki treated her very well when she was young. He took care of her like a little princess. his face brimming with happiness every day, and he always said that she was very similar to him, as expected of his biological daughter. At that time, Xia Kik's happiest moment was showing off her precious daughter, Yi, to the other mothers. For some unknown reason, but one day, everything changed. Actually, what Li Jia and Xiao Yumei said wasn't accurate. Xia Kiki really started to change 3 years ago. 3 years ago, Yi felt that his mother was a little different. His emotions fluctuated greatly. His speech was also very incoherent. Whenever there was nothing to do, he would find trouble with Yi. It was as if Yi should not have been born in this world. She also wondered if she had done something wrong to anger Mother Coco. In the days that followed, she was cautious in everything she did, for fear of angering her mother again. She had indeed done everything perfectly. Even Xia Kiki couldn't find the problem, but Xia Kiki found trouble with her transformation. She could not transform into a dragon. Could it be that mother is angry because she thinks I can't transform into a dragon? Yi bit her lip and didn't know what to do. She kept questioning herself in her heart. No, I have to go and ask mother. Yi clenched her fist, then left with a frown. Yijia. The girls outside were also shocked. What they didn't know was that, as they were shocked, a young man with a long sword frowned as he watched all of this. After a brief moment of hesitation, he also left with his black sword. Yi. Not long after he left, a woman with long, fiery hair slowly descended from the sky. The woman had the face of a queen. She looked at Yi suspiciously and shook her head lightly. Then, she walked straight towards the square hall. If that's the case, then why is Kiki like this? Yi Zichen, who was sitting on the floor, frowned. He was truly worried about Xia Kik's situation, her emotional state. Lu Jing, haven't you been spending more time with Kiki recently? Then did you hear what she said? Yi Zichen looked up. No. Lu Jing shrugged, then rolled her eyes at Yi Zichen. Kiki said that she misses you the most, and that she's been talking about why you haven't come back yet. So you guys are all here. At that moment, a red-haired woman with the face of a queen walked in. When they saw her, everyone was stunned. Hong Hong. Xiao Yumei arched her brows. Didn't you say you were going into seclusion until you reached the warlord level? Someone who could be called Hong Hong. Who else could it be but Shui Hong Hong? You could say she had the least contact with Yi Zichen's women. The only one he had more contact with was Xiao Yumei. She'd always been in the midst of cultivation. That was the case in the past, and it was still the case now. That's right. Shui Hong Hong shrugged. You broke through? Exclaimed Xiao Yumei. That's right. Why else would I come out? Shui Hong Hong pursed her lips, then glanced at Yi Zichen resentfully. Did you come out just to take a look at this guy? Yi Zichen scratched his head when he sensed Shui Hong Hong's gaze. Huh. Shui Hong Hong snorted coldly, then ignored Yi Zichen as if she were angry. She walked to a seat and sat down. What meeting are you having? I'd like to hear it too. Nothing much, really. It's just about Kiki. Xia Kiki? That's right. Xiao Yumei nodded. A while ago, Zichen returned and discovered that Kiki's emotions had worsened. She's already been gone for over 10 days and hasn't returned. We've tried contacting her, but she hasn't replied. She's a cosmic system level cultivator. What's there to be afraid of? That's true, said Xiao Yumei, pursing her lips. It's just that we think Kiki's emotional state is strange. We're all trying to figure out why. Have you figured out? Shui Hong Hong arched her brows. Everyone in the hall shook their heads. We're still discussing what the problem is, said Xiao Yumei. Do you guys think Coco might have been in contact with someone? Asked Li Jia. That's impossible. I'm with Kiki every day. Lu Jing shook her head. I've never seen her meet a stranger. I did see Kiki meet a stranger, though, said Shui Hong Hong suddenly. I just happened to run into her. I asked her who it was, but she stammered and refused to tell me. I was in a hurry to enter seclusion, so I didn't ask. It's true. Instantly, everyone in the room looked at Shui Hong Hong. When? About 3 years ago. Chapter 26-28. Xia Kik's emotional problems were definitely worth paying attention to. Some people might think he was making a mountain out of a molehill. She was just a little emotional, so he had to make it sound so serious. Little did they know, The way Yizichin saw it, he needed to make a mountain out of a molehill. Even now, he was starting to suspect that Xia Kik's emotional problems were deliberately caused by someone. According to Wan Li of the Virtual World Corporation, the reincarnation of the Master of the Milky Way, or perhaps because they knew Yizichin was his successor, had a huge impact on some people's interests. On the day of his conferment ceremony, just like that, he was assassinated by a monarch-level expert, a country lord. The amount of resources and time needed to nurture another expert like that was incalculable. More importantly, they'd sent a country lord capable of infiltrating the core of the Virtual World Corporation to assassinate Yizichin, right in front of the nine-faced hegemon. They knew the chances were slim, but they still tried. Even if they couldn't do it, they had to do it. They didn't hesitate to use a country lord. From this, it was clear just how determined they were. 10 years after the conferment ceremony, Yizichin had remained safe and sound. That was simply impossible. Yizichin had already thought it through. In the future, he'd suffer all sorts of attacks and assassinations, but none of them happened. Instead, the Milky Way galaxy developed steadily. How was that possible? There was one possibility. Yizichin was constantly on the move, and the people he came into contact with were all his trusted subordinates. As a result, the assassins they'd sent couldn't do anything to him. What would they do then? If Yizichin considered the problem from their point of view, he absolutely couldn't let the assassins go to waste. The assassins that were sent and must not be wasted. They must be trying to break into the Milky Way in some way, to reach the core of the Milky Way. If that was the case, there was only one possibility. That was, they were slowly climbing their way up to the core. Once they reached a certain level, they'd suddenly attack the Milky Way galaxy and cause internal strife. There was another possibility. They'd start with Yizichin's family. Hong Hong, can you confirm that Kiki really came into contact with outsiders? This is a very important question. Xiao Yimei frowned. I can't. Shui Hong Hong shrugged. You guys know that I'm not very good at socializing. I didn't come into contact with many people, so I'm not sure if you really know the people Xia Kiki came in contact with. But you said that when Coco was questioned by you, her expression was very flustered and her answers were rather awkward. Su Yin said, yes. During this time, Yizichin said nothing. He was also considering this matter in his heart. He couldn't investigate rashly. If he was really going to make a move, he had to catch the person behind it with lightning speed. Otherwise, he would alert the enemy. That's it for now. While everyone was silent, Yizichin finally spoke up. Just pretend that nothing happened. Hong Hong, tell me where you saw Kiki coming into contact with the people. On your Earth. Reddy shrugged. Earth. 3 years ago on Earth, the surrounding protection measures were already in place. Not to mention outsiders, even natives of the Milky Way galaxy would need to be examined if they wanted to enter Earth. Those who joined Earth later, even the 9 prisons controlled by Venerable Spirit Phoenix, were not allowed to come here. Did they come from the Earth? Yizichin furrowed his brows. How is that possible? Earth, the immortal planet, and the divine planet were all closed off from the outside world. It couldn't be that. Before the Milky Way galaxy was revealed to the public, had they already planted spies here? All right, I understand. Yizichin took a deep breath, then stood up. Right, just now I saw that girl you leave in a hurry. She must have gone to find Kiki, said Shui Hong Hong. Shui Hong Hong said, Baddie, Yizichin, you're the big baddie. Xia Kiki sat by the riverbank and threw a rock into the river. The rock splashed as it hit the water. She looked up at the sky. Yizichin hadn't come after her yet. In truth, she'd flown very slowly on purpose so that Yizichin could find her midway. There was no one in the sky. I'm so angry. I shouldn't have fallen for you in the first place. I even gave birth to your child. Ugh. Then he threw a few stones into the river. Suddenly, the river became turbulent, and a ferocious beast that looked like a flood dragon emerged from it. Who the hell threw rocks at me? Don't you know this is my big brother, King Yuanhai's territory? How dare you behave so atrociously in my territory? Xia Kiki glared. The flood dragon glared at her for a while, then licked his lips. A woman with such soft skin and tender flesh will definitely taste delicious. No, wait, isn't this beautiful woman good enough to be my wife? Idiot! She glanced at the flood dragon in disgust. Xia Kiki couldn't be bothered to pay him any mind. Or rather, she completely ignored him. She grabbed rocks and threw them into the river. Woman, this king has taken a fancy to you. Be my woman, and I'll make sure you can do whatever you want in this area. The blue-skinned flood dragon, with a horn on its head, shouted. Xia Kiki ignored him completely. She was still sulking, minding her own business. Woman. Instantly, the water in the river floated into the air. The flood dragon rode the water to the riverbank, then looked down at Xia Kiki from above. This king is talking to you. You seem to be sick. Xia Kiki glanced at him. I can't be bothered with you right now. Stop showing off in front of me. If you don't want to get beaten up, then scram. Oh, you have quite a temper. The flood dragon pointed at Xia Kiki. Unexpectedly, Xia Kiki grabbed his arm and threw him over her shoulder onto the ground. Her fists rained down on him. The mighty flood dragon king was beaten to the point where he couldn't even move, let alone fight back. Grandma, stop hitting me. The flood dragon lay on the ground and begged bitterly. He'd hit a brick wall. One must know that the flood dragon was already at the sky immortal level. He hadn't gone to the immortal planet yet, because he felt that being a local tyrant on Earth was pretty good. He didn't like the ocean. He felt that the guys in the ocean were all demonic beasts with no EQ. But he was different. He was a noble flood dragon. A dragon. Then, he found this river and settled down. He beat up all the ferocious beasts in the surrounding 50 kilometers, establishing his position as the flood dragon king. This was the third day he settled down here. It was also the first day he was officially preparing to become a local tyrant. When Xia Kiki threw the rock, he wanted to come out to patrol and enjoy the thrill of acting cool. He didn't expect to get hit in the head by a rock. He was furious. When he came out, he saw Xia Kiki throwing a rock. Then, Grandma, just let me go. The flood dragon wanted to cry to death. TSK, this little shitty half-dragon is still showing off in front of me, Xia Kiki spat. Then she stretched lazily and said with a bright expression, I feel much better after venting. Go back and tell Yi Zichen to apologize to me. Then, Xia Kiki hummed a tune and skipped out. Madam, Yi seems to be in a good mood. Suddenly, a middle-aged man walked out from the forest outside the river. Xia Kiki looked towards him with a frown. It's you. Why did you come again? Chapter 26-29. Xia Kiki frowned at the riverbank. The newcomer looked like an earthling. He had a medium build and a burnt face. She couldn't sense any aura from his body. He seemed like an ordinary middle-aged man. Yet, every step he took seemed to move according to the earth's rhythm, as if he was one with the world. The flood dragon king that Xia Kiki hammered stole a glance at him. He slowly crawled toward the river. Why are you here again? Xia Kiki frowned. I told you 3 years ago that I don't believe you at all. Really? The middle-aged man stopped about 5 meters away from Xia Kiki. Do you dare say that you haven't felt any changes in your body over the past 2 years? My cultivation has stagnated. My dragon power has decreased. Do you feel a stabbing pain in your veins at night and feel like dying is better than living? No. Xia Kiki frowned. My cultivation has increased steadily, and I sleep very soundly at night. My dragon power is also very abundant. Dragon power. The flood dragon that was crawling towards the river was stunned. He sneaked a glance at Xia Kiki behind him. This sister is actually a true dragon. Damn, no wonder he was hammered so hard. It turned out that he had encountered the guardian of the earth. Is it really good to lie to others and yourself? The middle-aged man shrugged. You should know very well whether I'm telling the truth or not. Madam Yi, your birthday is coming soon. That's the truth. Bullshit, Xia Kiki glared. I'm at the peak of the nebula. You're the one who's coming soon. Stop bullshitting me. I don't want to hit you. Scram. The middle-aged man shrugged a few meters away from Xia Kiki. He didn't care about the threat at all. Are you unwilling or unable? You don't even dare to circulate the universal energy and dragon power in your body right now. If you dare to move, your meridians will feel like they're being torn apart by the surging energy. The dragon power will also age faster. Also, you're afraid of using the universal energy to maintain your appearance. You don't dare to face your aging. right? Shut up. Suddenly, Xiaokiki raised her hand and punched out. This punch raised the forest behind the middle-aged man to the ground, leaving a crater that was tens of meters deep and extended for thousands of meters. The Flood Dragon King was stunned. I'm really grateful to this ancestor for not killing me. If this ancestor had done that to him just now, even if he didn't die, he would have to cultivate for a few hundred years to recover. Heh, the middle-aged man didn't move at all. He grinned at the furious Xiaokiki in front of him. I was right. What are you trying to do? Xiaokiki bit her lips and yelled. I'm telling you, I won't believe you. I'm fine. I'm here to help Madame Yi. The middle-aged man shrugged lightly, holding a pill in his hand. This pill can extend your lifespan for 30,000 years. 30,000 years isn't long, but it's not short either, right? At least you can see your daughter grow up. I can even stay with my lord for a long time. Xiaokiki stared fixedly at the pill. Do you think I'll believe you? Of course you'll believe me. The middle-aged man shrugged. If I'm not wrong, you should have taken the pill I gave you earlier, right? How's the effect? Is the pain gone? There shouldn't be any side effects after the effect ends, right? What do you want? Xiaokiki frowned. Heh, of course I'm here for money. The middle-aged man shrugged. You don't have to worry too much. I don't have any other intentions. I'm only here for money. For money? Yes. How much do you want? 30,000 primal chaos. The middle-aged man raised his finger. 30,000 primal chaos. That's not a small number, but it should be within your means. 1 year of lifespan per primal chaos. I believe even the Milky Way Lord would be willing. 30,000 primal chaos. Xiaokiki frowned. When the middle-aged man said this number, Xiaokiki really let her guard down. She felt like he was really here for money. After so many years, she was no longer a noob to the universe. 30,000 primal chaos was 3 trillion cosmic dollars. Even a mini-marquee level experts, that was a huge sum of money. All these years, Yi Zichen had sent money to his family, so they could buy cultivation resources on their own. Xiaokiki's share had indeed been saved. She also had tens of thousands of primal chaos. You're not from Earth, said Xiaokiki. You're wrong. I really am from Earth. If you don't believe me, I can show you my ID. The middle-aged man took out his ID with a smile. Then how could you possibly have such a pill? Earth doesn't have this kind of pill refining technology. Never mind Earth, the divine planet, and the immortal planet. She'd come into contact with old Lord Taishang, who was most proficient in pill refining. No one could refine a pill that could increase one's lifespan by 30,000 years. Most importantly, she ate it, but it didn't work. The Queen Mother gave her several thousand-year peaches of immortality, but her lifespan didn't increase at all. Old Lord Taishang personally opened 2 cauldrons of pills for her. Nothing worked. She went to the divine planet to find the angel race's divine king and ask him to bless her. Nothing worked either. In the past 3 years, she tried countless times. Don't we have this second universe here? The middle-aged man shrugged with a smile. I got it from there. The second universe. Xiaokiki pursed her lips and let out a deep breath. All right, give me the pill. I'll give it to you. No. At this moment, an urgent voice suddenly came from the void. Yi descended from the sky. She grabbed the pill in her hand. Yi Er, who was carrying a black sword, followed behind her. Yi Er, you guys. Mother Kiki, don't believe this guy's nonsense. Yi Er carried the long sword and looked at the middle-aged man coldly. There's something wrong with this pill. Xiaokiki was stunned. Yi Er did not speak and walked to the middle-aged man in a few steps. You're from Earth. To be able to refine such a pill, you have to be at least titled or above. Why did he give the pill to you? Why did you come looking for me? How did you know about my situation? Who told you about it? Who are you? Who gave you the pill? Speak. Answer me. Yi Er's cold eyes caused the middle-aged man's gaze to freeze. Who are you? I'm following. Yi Er smiled coldly. I'm the Milky Way Lord, the second son of Emperor Yi of the Emperor's Star. Yi Er. My mother is the god of life, the healer of life, Su Yin. My aunt is the Empress of Ice, the head of the nine-tailed fox clan, Su Lu'er. My uncle is the head of the 4 auxiliary stars, the left auxiliary star, Shang. I can tell you all the people who are related to me. Who are you? Do you dare tell me your name? Chapter 2630. On the riverbank, Yi carried a black sword on his back and looked at the middle-aged man in front of him with bright eyes. Even though he was a boy, his heart had inherited Su Yan's meticulousness. He had always been aware of Xia Kik's violent mood swings in the past few years. Otherwise, he wouldn't have followed Yi out when his other sisters didn't know the situation. The middle-aged man was speechless. He frowned and looked at the young boy in front of him. Don't talk. Yi narrowed his eyes. Are you guilty, or are you afraid to say it at all? Wei Zhongyuan. The middle-aged man spoke. Very good. Yi nodded lightly and reached out to Yi. Yi raised his hand and placed the blood-red pill in Yi's hand. What's this pill for? Longevity. What raw materials were used, what refining method was used, and who made it? No comment. Wei Zhongyuan was expressionless. This is all confidential. How can I tell you all this? Does your Yi family like to force others to do things like this? What a big accusation. Yi, who was holding the pill, laughed. He didn't want to explain, but he could say that the Yi family wanted to steal his formula and refining method. Isn't it? Wei Zhongyuan's expression didn't change as he reached out his hand. If the Yi family doesn't want to do business, then return the pill to me. You haven't said who gave it to you. In an instant, Yi's expression turned cold. Who do you think your current customer is? She's the Dragon Clan leader, the second wife of the Yi family. You want to sell her the pill, but you haven't explained everything. Do you think you can still take it back? Do you want to rob me? No. Yi laughed and looked at the pill in his hand. Our Yi family has always been upright. My father, Emperor Yi, is the Lord of the Milky Way and controls the entire Milky Way. How could he rob you of a pill? Then what do you mean? Wei Zhongyuan also became angry. You're not buying it, and you're not returning it either. I don't have time to waste with you here. From beginning to end, Yi had been paying attention to Wei Zhongyuan's expression. It's a waste of time with me, but it's not a waste of time with my second mother. You're really interesting. Yi twisted his neck and put the pill directly back into his pocket. I want to invite you to my Yi family as a guest. Holy shit, going to the Milky Way Lord's house as a guest. Lying in the river, the Jiao Dragon King's eyes were filled with envy. That was the home of the Milky Way Lords, the head of the entire galaxy. No matter what he was going to do, he could brag about it when he came back. How is it? My Yi family is very hospitable, and we will treat people like you with even more respect. Why would I go to the Yi group? Wei Zhongyuan shouted angrily. Don't you want money? Yi shrugged. I'll give this elixir to my father for examination. If it's really as you said, it can consolidate the foundation and increase the lifespan. Then we're willing to pay double the price. I believe you will agree. If there is no problem with this medicinal pill of yours. Boom! Suddenly, Wei Zhongyuan, who was standing in front, threw out a smoke bomb. When the smoke dissipated, Wei Zhongyuan had disappeared from the sight of Yi and the others. Yi held his long sword and frowned. With his strength, he couldn't sense the other party's aura at all. Damn it! Yi clenched his fists tightly. But it was good that Wei Zhongyuan had escaped. He wasn't sure if he could capture Wei Zhongyuan. The reason he came here was for Xia Kiki and Yi. Second mom. Yi walked straight to Xia Kiki. Why are you guys here? That person. Before Xia Kiki could finish her sentence, she suddenly fell to the ground. Her entire body seemed to have aged beyond recognition. Mom! He pounced over. At this moment, several figures descended from the sky. Kiki, Yi family residence. The main god of life, Su Yin, was instilling life force into Xia Kiki while the others stood outside the door and waited. Dad, I'm sorry. Yi lowered his head and muttered softly. He was blaming himself for not catching the culprit directly. Instead, he alerted the enemy and was unable to find the suspect. Xia Kiki's situation was the same. Yi Zichen looked at Yi, who was blaming himself. Yi Zichen pursed his lips and rubbed Yi's head. It's not your fault. It should be me. Yi Zichen let out a deep sigh. At that moment, Shang hurried back from outside. Emperor's Star. What's the result? Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. Shang shook his head. That way Zhong Yuan is already dead. Dead? Yes, just now, Yin Shang said with a dark expression. When we got there, he was already dead at home. From the looks of his surroundings, it seemed like he committed suicide. Impossible. Yi Zichen refuted Yin Shang's words without any hesitation. Suicide? If he really did commit suicide, then why did he run back home to die? When my son wanted to catch him, he knew that he could die if he was exposed. There's something wrong with this. Have someone continue to investigate. I want to investigate him down to his cells. Yi Zichen clenched his fists tightly, while flames of anger burned his eyes. Someone must have done this on purpose. Since they couldn't do it to me, then they did it to my family. I absolutely can't let him find out who the mastermind is. If he finds out, even if I have to use all the power of the Milky Way, I'll destroy them. Have someone continue to investigate. Contact everyone that person came into contact with. Also, contact the Virtual World Corporation and have them retrieve recordings of him in the second universe. See who he came into contact with. Also, all his virtual network contacts, chat history, call history, everything related to him. We want it all. After that, we'll personally investigate him. Yes, sir. Yin Shang nodded solemnly. From Yi Zichen's aura, he could sense that the Emperor's star was truly angry this time. Or perhaps, everyone around him was his reverse scale. Whoever touched him would die. Go. Yi Zichen waved at Yin Shang, took a deep breath, then crossed his arms and stood outside the door. Zichen, come here for a moment. Su Yan's voice transmitted to him. Yi Zichen hurriedly pushed the door open and saw Xia Kiki still lying on the bed. Her once youthful beauty was no more. All that remained was an old woman, like a candle in the wind. How is it, big brother? Zichen. Right at this moment, the old woman on the bed spoke abruptly. When he heard her ancient voice, Yi Zichen's eyes instantly reddened. He hurried to Xia Kiki's bedside and grabbed her hand. I'm here. Kiki, I'm here.